All right, all right. Another Saturday night shoot the breeze. If you can hear me, if anyone is here, you should be able to hear me. If anyone is here, drop a 1 for me. Let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. You know what I like to do. I like to hop on before the show starts officially and let you guys know what topics we have in store. As you know, we are cutting the show at around 11. Last week we went over because of all the conversations that we were having, but typically we go from 8 to 11 now. I see the pro-black perspective out there saying peace. He dropped a 1. He says it's 3 a.m. in Tanzania, so that's where he is right now. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. I appreciate you even being up at this time. Daily Affirmation by Pauline is out there saying good evening. So good evening to her as well. What are we talking about tonight? Tonight, we're going to talk about how France used sex workers to maintain power in Africa. Interesting. We're going to talk about kings and gods again. If you were here last week, you know, wink, wink. We'll talk about kings and gods again, and are the two comparable? We're going to talk about the Jacksonville, Florida shooting that recently occurred. Was it a retaliation for the Montgomery, Alabama fight? Remember that fight down by the docks there? When the guy threw up the hat and everyone came responding and chairs were flung and all that kind of stuff? Was that retaliation? We're going to look at a story where apparently children of the diaspora were singled out. And the question is it fair for only children of the diaspora to be singled out? And lastly, the fifth or so topic that we have tonight, Europeans have a better idea of their cultural unity, and they cause disarray in Africa. Doesn't this prove that cultural cradles can exist and that Africa can, in fact, have one? So we're going to talk about that tonight as well. If time permits, I might add a possible. There's a couple on the Discord. If you're not on the Discord, click the link down in the description. Join the Discord. Hit me up, Koku, on the Discord so I can give you a role. And you can also post topics that you think are good discussion pieces for Shoot the Breeze on Saturday night. Okay, so I see Ketter is here. Trigger Happy 262 Plus is here. So I appreciate all of you who are here right now. The link for anyone who wants to join the panel is pinned to the top of the chat. What I'm going to do now is officially start the show. And on the other side of the intro, I'll drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight. So stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Also, check out Brother Bakari podcast. Check out The4Kast Radio. Those guys are pretty active in terms of doing regular broadcasts. We hope the matron will return. Hopefully, Tanzan will come back around again. You could also reach out to them and give them a little nudge too when you have a chance. Make sure to check out Cassidra Cheek's Realm in the Bush show as well. All right. With that said, let me introduce my panelists who have now joined. The first is Oni from the Pro-Black Perspective. Oni, how is it at 3 a.m. in Tanzania?
Shit. No, I'm just buzzing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm kind of tired, but it is what it is. Showing up for the Shoot the Breeze.
Well, I appreciate it. You were missed last week. I appreciate it. But if you got to go at any point, by all means, don't hesitate. We appreciate your effort. Let's welcome in Black Steel this week. Black Steel, how are you?
I'm doing good. We weathered the storm. There's a hurricane. It hit North Florida, but it missed our general area, so we're doing good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let's welcome in Buana this week. Buana, how are you this week?
What's good, brothers, man? I'm good. Koku, Black Steel, I hope you're safe in South Florida. Pro-Black, stay safe on the streets of Tanzania. And one last thing, Koku, before we begin the program, I would just like to, humbly ask or make a request that no matter what the brothers get into tonight, let's try to leave family members, women, daughters, off of the table, because these seem to be very sensitive issues. So let's try as best as we can not to speak in a disparaging way or any kind of critical way of family members, the women, and things of that nature. Let's try our best to be restricted in our words. So I'll just leave it there.
And I echo that sentiment. I'll also add to that. I was going to say this too before the show started. That this is a show with adults in the chat, on the panel, and I'll be real honest with y'all. I'm not here to tell you how to be an adult, man. Like what Buana just said, to me, doesn't even really need to be said, but it had to be said because of some recent stuff. We're here to exchange ideas and our thoughts and perspectives. We're not here to insult anyone and engage in nonsense that needs to be refereed. That's the other thing I want to point out too. I'm not here to be a referee either. You guys are all adults. Handle this thing as adults should, Anyway, with that said, Trigger Happy 262 seems to agree with Buana. Yep, definitely need to leave that out. He says, Yana B is here. Yana B says hello to everyone. So peace to Yana B. She also says agreed, no personal nonsense. Absolutely. With that said, I should have done this before, right? I always forget to do this. Let me grab Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight. Keter agrees too, it seems. So I appreciate you guys for agreeing. Share this to your social media. Share this on Twitter and the likes. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight is how France used sex workers to maintain power in Africa. This came with a link that I'll share with you guys. Yeah. So we'll watch the videos and then we'll have a discussion about it.
Weapon against African leaders was the pillow talk technique a recent French documentary revealed. It showed how France used sleepover spies not to count sheep, but to snuggle, seduce, erect, and extract juicy information to influence its foreign policies, especially in Africa. These spies were not ordinary women, but highly trained and sophisticated women who understood the assignment. They worked under the leadership of a woman known as Madame Claude, the most powerful and notorious madame in France at the time. But who was Madame Claude? Let's get our fingers dirty. This madame was born in France in 1923 and she claimed to have joined the resistance during the Nazi occupation of France. But some sources suggest that she was in bed with the Germans. After the war, she moved to Paris and started the business of offering the services of beautiful and cultured women whom she called swans to wealthy and influential men. Basically, this woman was running a global high class brothel, not with swans, but with vulture, preying on the weak and powerful men in search of someone to stroke their ego. She had a roster of beautiful women who could make any man spill his secrets and his seed. Her clients included actors, businessmen, royalty from all over the world. Some of the names that have been linked to her are G.F. Kennedy, the Shah of Iran, Charles de Gaulle, and many others. She was also friends with Coco Chanel, Salvatore Dali, and Truman Capote. By the way, Capote means in French condom. What a happy coincidence. A match made in heaven on the seventh. It's safe to say that it is better to have Capote's friendship in your back pocket and not need it than need it and not have it. Anyways, Madame Claude was not just a pimp, but also a master of manipulation and blackmail. She had a strict selection process and trained the recruits in etiquette, languages, and art. She also collected secret information from her clients, which she used to blackmail them or to cooperate with the police or, her government. She amassed fortune. She amassed fortune. She was the most powerful madam in France, and she had more connections than the Atlantic. She worked with the French Secret Service, which used some of her staff as agents to infiltrate and influence foreign governments, especially in Africa. In other words, she was in bed with diplomacy, literally and figuratively. Madame Claude's empire began crumbling in the late 70s when she was arrested and charged with tax evasion and pimping. She fled to the United States where she lived for over a decade. She returned to France in 1986 and served a 4 month prison sentence. Then she lived a secluded life in Nice until her death in 2015 at the age of 92. She was the subject of several books, documentaries, and film. A biopic titled Madame Claude was released on Netflix in 2021, but no chill. But back to African leaders and politicians. Chad first president Francois Tombalbaye, also known as Nkarta Tombalbaye, had a rocky relationship with France, which was the former colonial power in Chad. Although they initially worked together in harmony after Chad's independence in 1960, he gradually became more hostile and defiant toward his former ally and colonizer. He had several reasons for this change of attitude. One, he wanted to assert his authority and autonomy by replacing French civil servants with Chadians, mostly from his ethnic group. This provoked the resentment of the French who felt like they were losing their influence and interest in Chad. Two, he accused France of meddling in African affairs, not new, and supporting secessionist movements such as the Biafra War in Nigeria. He denounced France's neocolonial ambition and sought to distance himself from its policies. Three, he diversified his foreign policy and sought support from other countries such as Libya, China, and the United States. He aimed to cut ties with France and pursue more independent and nationalist course of his country. Four, he faced growing opposition and unrest within his own country, especially from Muslim majority in the north who felt marginalized and oppressed by his southern dominated regime. He also became increasingly authoritarian and repressive, banning all political parties except his own, abolishing the constitution and imposing a single party system. He confronted several rebellion and coup attempts from various factions, some which were backed by France or Libya. You see, these factors contributed to the deterioration of Chad and France relations under President Tobalbai. However, his downfall was not only caused by external pressure, but by also his own mistakes. For example, this one. President Tombalbaye slipped up in muddy waters and told the French honey trap who worked for Madame Claude his plans about ditching France and striking deals with other partners, not knowing he was pillow talking with a spy who would share that confidential information with our government. Naturally, this information reached France, but Paris did not find President Tombalbaye's intentions arousing. What we've come to learn in recent years is that Paris doesn't like to be ghosted or told to leave an African country it once colonized. It's like a toxic. It's like France has an attachment issues. Even if the relationship is toxic, with them being the toxic party, they just want it to continue so that they can keep on rising and have easy access to penetrate our natural resources. Anyways, with the spies' blessings to our government, it was only a matter of time for something to happen. So on April 13, 1975, President Tombalbaye didn't just lose power in a coup, he also lost his life falling for a flat nyash. According to reports, he was shot dead by rebel soldiers who stormed his palace. Some say it was a coincidence, others say it was a conspiracy. Either way, France got rid of a thorn on its side and gained a new ally in Chad. You see, the French elite would bend over to keep the tip of Africa in its wide sphere. That's why Africa is always all over their mouth. They would do anything to maintain their influence and interest on the continent, even if using pillow talk techniques as a weapon. They would not hesitate to use the agent seduction to charm and disarm their targets, to make them soft and vulnerable, to make them come to their senses or come to their knees. I don't want to rub it in your face, but according to one of the most famous book of imaginary stories out there, Delilah's and Eve's sloppy mouth made hard men come to their demise. The moral of the story is, to all my brother, don't fall for Nyash.
Wait, Nini?
So just to be clear, that video's volume dips on its own. It's not something that I did or anything of that nature. It's just how the video is. But I think if you focused in, you could make out what was being said there in the video. So Shoot the Breeze, topic number one, says how France used sex workers to maintain power in Africa. Let me start with Buana. Well, actually, no. Let me start with Black Steel. Black Steel, what are your thoughts on what you saw?
Man, it's a snowbuddy crisis, man. Well, I mean, just looking into his story, I'm not surprised. Sex workers, like he was saying in the video, sex workers have always been used to gather information if necessary. To take it, they could pass between enemy lines. They pick up things, people say things and they communicate back to their superiors. So I'm not surprised that this is a tactic used by the Europeans to gain access and to overthrow or undermine, liberation movements and whatnot. That's why we always have to be vigilant. Sometimes as men we can't think with the little head; we got to think with the big head. So understand that this tactic has been used, been used often, and it was funny he said, he got seduced by a flat nyash, which is hilarious. But I mean, I also understand how, unfortunately, some black people aspire to a European ideas of beauty and femininity and attractiveness. And it's not just black men, black women. It's an infection across all of the diaspora and all our genders, and they can easily fall for that deception. But you just got to be vigilant. Um, I'm questioning all these African leaders. Who was the one I think is in Gabon or somebody who had the white woman as a wife? I'm pretty
Ali
sure.
Bongo.
Yes, it's Bongo. Yeah, that was the guy. Yeah, he got this white woman all booed up on his arm, and these people have been ruling the country for 50, 60 years. His whole family. And you look at him, who's he got on his arm? But he got a polar bear. So you just got to be careful. Don't think with your big head, and what Dr. Umar say? Politics before punani. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Black Steel. Yeah, that flat Nyash thing is wild, to be completely honest. And like Black Steel said, these guys, they've been using that on, they use this stuff for themselves. In fact, I've noticed since I've been in New York, I've noticed that every few years there's always some Russian doll scandal. Some one of these Russian chicks is a sex worker and comes to find out she's out here a spy and all that stuff. So it happens, in their society, much less ours. The thing for us though, we should be able to spot this shit from a mile away, and we shouldn't be falling for it anymore. But that's the issue, I guess. That's the big thing we have to overcome. Only what say you to it?
Yeah, I couldn't fall for flat Nash. I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean this is just common sense. I mean, I don't see how you could be in Africa and go for a white girl. That's already stupid. But it's also suspect. Like what do you think she's there for? I mean, the thing is this too. Like any prostitute is reporting back to her handler. Like every prostitute, like unless she's like a free agent, is reporting back to her handler all the time. Like to think that you can trust a prostitute is already like problem number one. So I think there's something wrong with these kind of men where they're laying up with a woman who's like employed by somebody, and then telling them secrets. Like that doesn't even make any sense. Now, if you're saying, "Hey, look, I'm gonna take a phone call while she's here," that makes a little more sense. But it's also, it's also sloppy. It's also sloppy, and sometimes it's like, okay, maybe this person's in the room, and they don't speak, Swahili, right? You know what I mean? And so we could speak freely, our Swahili, because they don't speak Swahili. That's like I said, there are some ways where a man can get caught off guard, but it's like, don't get caught off guard with a white person, because you should always be on guard with a white person, and here's the thing too. It's like white people would be more expensive. So you just wasting extra resources for something that looks worse. Like that's stupid. I mean, but I'm not going to say it's a, like you pointed out. I'm not going to say that it's a Africa thing, because this is just common sense. Trotsky, famous socialist, once upon a time, some people regard him as Stalin's rival at one point, right? He was killed by some woman he thought he was wifing, but she was a Russian spy. But that's like, yeah, just stupid. Like, just don't. If you laid up with a prostitute, that's on you, right? But then don't like be cautious, and do not tell her anything. Don't say anything around her. Just keep cool. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well stated. Well stated. that comment you made about being sloppy, I think that's a very important comment. I think the kind of mindset that Africans need to have needs to address this notion of being sloppy too. Like, but ultimately, if you had not went and laid up with this white woman, you wouldn't have had this issue, right? That's the bottom line to it. Ultimately, if you didn't lay up with her, you wouldn't have had the issue of being sloppy in front of her or some shit like that, you know? So I agree with what you said 100%. Good comments in the chat. I'll read some of them in a second. MG2 just joined us. MG2, how are you this week?
Doing good. Hopefully everybody's health is okay. I'm glad that you showed this video. First off, I want to say peace to everyone. And many of you guys are much younger than me, so I have to just tell you from just from experience of what I've seen in life. The use of sex workers. I saw this video the other day, and the use of sex workers for any agenda is nothing new. That's been happening since the dawn of time, and I'm pretty sure you all know that. It's that's clearly one of the reasons that Africa fell in the first place. Was the miscegenation that caused a lot of mulattoization, and then we fall. And that's my take on Dr. Chancellor Williams. So the sex worker thing is something that I think a lot of us nowadays, because social media has inundated with information that we may have forgotten or not known of, especially you younger guys, that it seems like it is something of an anomaly or a modern anomaly. This is old, like they say, what is the oldest profession? Okay, so it kind of should tell you everything you need to know. And one thing, before I leave, I'm gonna drop this on you guys just a little bit. All right, think about it this way. The sex worker scenario is no different whether it was done with that Negro over there in Gabon, or whether it's done with Tyrell and Ray Ray and Pookie, who go ahead and are getting an NFL contract. The first thing they do is they say, "Do you want a car?" And it comes with the Becky. So therefore, it's no different. Somebody's got an agenda. Shall we say OJ? They'll have an agenda. They're going to go ahead and get what they want, and the first thing they do is they use the oldest profession. Clearly, it's a tried and true thing. So the thing is, I want to drop this on you is if you recognize whether it's toys and trinkets, record deals, a Becky or whatever, if somebody wants something, they're going to have that word that many of us don't realize. It's called an agenda. An agenda. But brothers, keep in mind, whatever you encounter in life, there is only one difference of a letter, one letter difference between the word agenda and agent. So just remember that. Thanks a lot, brothers, and I'll go ahead and listen offline and listen to a wonderful show you guys have. Peace.
All right, appreciate that, MG2. Let's go to before I go to Buana, hold on. Let me read some comments real quick. So Trigger Happy 262 says a black leader who doesn't have a healthy relationship to a black wife should be questioned, should be shamed if you even messing with the whites in a majority black country. I agree with that 100%. So does Ketter. Trigger says even our revolutionary leaders, they are 1,000 times better than the leaders now, but them having a white wife or non-black wife should be questionable, and it affects ideology. And the same person who came to mind as who came to mind for Ketter and Nkrumah had an Arab. Brother Bakari is out there in the chat. He said peace and black power earlier. So peace to Brother Bakari. Let's go to Buana now. Buana, you heard everything everyone had to say. What say you to all of it?
Yeah, so let me explain the first thing. It's a term that I heard from a YouTuber, back in the day. He used to use this term called beautiful trash. Beautiful trash. And some of our brothers only look at the person's face, exterior, and they fall for that. Not knowing that some of these women are just beautiful trash. They're beautiful trash. They have nothing really to contribute to you outside of their so-called beauty. And if you look at the leaders in Africa, some of whom are people who are the center of these coups right now, look at their wives. Find out who their wives are. I think that one of the persons who was holding the coup, I can't remember exactly the country. I think it's either Mali or I can't remember exactly where it is. His wife, his white wife, was a former police officer in France. Could you imagine such a thing? We have our African leaders have married outside of the continent for some strange reason. God knows why. God knows why you would jump over 1.3 billion people and go look for your woman in Europe. You bypass all them beautiful women in Africa and go. At least you could have married someone else from another African country, but you bypass them and go into Europe. It shows you that not only do these so-called leaders suffer from low self-esteem, but they should not be in a position to lead black people. If you're suffering from such high low self-esteem that you believe to have a white woman in your arm is something to be accomplished, you should not be a leader in Africa. It's just as simple as that. Simple as that. Imagine a Chinese leader marrying a European woman. It'll never happen. Ever happen. So there we have work to do. We have work to do in influencing the mindset of people. Because if we here and the leaders of countries that's governing millions of black people could just bypass all these beautiful African women and decide to marry a French woman, there is a big problem. There is a big, big issue. Because unfortunately, these women turn out to be beautiful trash. They go back and tell their paymasters, hey, these people are plotting to get rid of y'all. Y'all need to do something about it. And in terms of what Oni say, sex workers is a general term. Because in the sex working industry, you get your people who look like the street hooker on 125th Street. Then you have the well-dressed, articulate, smart, intelligent honey trap. Smart, intelligent honey trap. You wouldn't even know if she was a hooker or not. Or you wouldn't even know she's actually doing this, what she's doing in the service of other people. This is the reason why they have madams. A madam prepares these women to engage so-called intelligent men to their own particular whims. Because an intelligent man ain't go for the street to hooker. No, he gonna go for well-prepared, beads and high heels, well-dressed hooker, not knowing that she is actually a hooker. She is just beautiful trash. He just doesn't know it. So for me to stay out of that trap is not to mess with them in the first place. Go marry a village woman. Village woman, beautiful. They beautiful. You could instruct them and prepare them and train them. Because you come from the village too. Better the devil I know than the devil I don't know. But I'll stop there though. I'll stop there.
No, I think those are all good points, especially the last one. It's better the devil you know than the one you don't know, and that should cover it all when it comes to race first or race only ideology. It's better I deal with my black brother or black sister than the unknown person over there. Does anyone else want to add any last thoughts here?
I just want to say one thing, to those men that play in the snow. Understand that the white woman works in conjunction with the white man. There's never, we sometimes like to spin this narrative as though, white women were not complicit in the crimes of white men, and that is absolutely not true. There's an often told statistic in the U.S. here that it says 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump, and it just kind of shows there's some of these feminists believe there's some sort of camaraderie amongst women. Understand that the white woman will go with the white man, and when it comes down to dominate people at every opportunity. So I don't want us to ever lose sight of that.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Anyone else want to have a last comment? Well, I'll give it a trigger happy 262 in the chat. He says, if there's one sphere of human activity that people like to make so many excuses for, it's sex and religion. The excuses are so pathetic, but they can't get around it. I agree with that. Since there's no more comments, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 tonight. Thanks to MG2 who came through and spoke his piece on that topic. Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 is, these are the kings and gods. Are the two comparable? This comes with a link, of course, taking us to TikTok, I guess. Why is this not going through? Okay. So it's taking us to TikTok. I don't know how long this video is, but we'll watch it and then we will comment on it.
Whenever black people do things that white people don't do, it's usually automatically categorized as ignorant or foolish, when in actuality, it's usually dating back to parts of our culture that we just no longer know about. In high school, I read a book that spoke about a part of Native American tradition, and it didn't call the Native Americans foolish or ignorant for doing it. After a successful harvest, they would go to the highest mountain or the highest hill, and they would burn their excess crops to let all the other tribes in the region know that they were thriving and they were successful. Now, today in black culture, we'll throw money in the club, we'll make it rain, and in this case, we'll pour bottles, but it's really dating back to the same concept that the Native Americans were doing. It's just that we're not respected.
All right, I'll play that one more time. It's a short video, so I'll play it one more time.
Whenever black people do things that white people don't do, it's usually automatically categorized as ignorant or foolish, when in actuality, it's usually dating back to parts of our culture that we just no longer know about. In high school, I read a book that spoke about a part of Native American tradition, and it didn't call the Native Americans foolish or ignorant for doing it. After a successful harvest, they would go to the highest mountain or the highest hill, and they would burn their excess crops to let all the other tribes in the region know that they were thriving and they were successful. Now, today in black culture, we'll throw money in the club, we'll make it rain, and in this case, we'll pour bottles, but it's really dating back to the same concept that the Native Americans were doing. It's just that we're not respected.
All right, so I did happen to see this. Like, maybe it was Oni or someone who had reposted this thing, but I did happen to see. So that video and the insert, or the video in video, it apparently in Houston, I think it was, black folks go into the club, particularly black men, go into the club and buy bottles, expensive bottles of liquor, and don't drink it, just pour it out. They're just buying the shit, spending a bunch of money, pouring it out, and not even consuming it. And it's a big kind of stunt type thing, which is weird to me, really weird. Now, I don't know exactly how that, associates with the prompt, but let's see what the panelists have to say. Let me start with Buana this time. Buana, what say you to what you just saw in the prompt?
Well, Coco is very really not drunk enough yet, but this man is saying he's comparing black culture to Native American culture. Is he saying that he's Indian? I mean, come on, bro. Okay, let me. What can I say about something like this? This man have dreads, this man have a beard, and he's saying that he's referring this practice or what some brothers doing in the club ignorantly to Native American celebration. What does one thing have to do with another? Is he saying he's an Indian? And if he is, I mean, what can we say to this? It's nothing I could say to this. I am not an Indian. They say the people from the Caribbean is West Indians. I am not no West Indian. That's Columbus' mistake. Columbus was an error when he considered this part of the world the west of India. This is the Caribbean. So I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what this man talking about. So I can't comment on something I really don't know. And what he talking about, what he referencing, I don't compare myself to a native Indian or Aboriginal or nothing like that. So I'll pass.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild. It's kind of a wild prompt, and the whole video is wild, and the whole idea of justifying the nonsense that's going on in the clubs these days, apparently, that's kind of wild too. I guess the prompt is to say, is this king and God type shit that black folks are doing? Is that, But again, I'm myself a little bit confused on it. So let's hear more confusion, I guess, from Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you?
Well, I'm not confused. I just think it's stupid, and oh man. So first of all, I want to know the name of the book he read in high school, because he claims he read this in a book. I want to know the name of the book he read. It better not have been ended in the cupboard. Okay, I want you to have an actual book you read, because what people are taking their surplus food and just destroying it for any reason, just to show off for other cultures. That doesn't make any sense. Now, I understand some people may take some of their excess food and give it to an offering for their deities. That happened. But the idea, the thinking that, oh, Native Americans just took their excess and just destroyed it just to show how great there are, how much extra they got. Now, I know among the Tinglet in the Pacific Northwest, whenever they would have surpluses, they would have, what they call a potlatch, and they would invite the other surrounding tribes around to give the food out to show, how generous they were. But that's, again, I don't know what book he read. I personally think he's making this up as he's saying it, because it makes no sense for you to destroy your excess, your surplus food that you have. That's food you could use in times of famine, in times of drought, So that's, to me, that's ridiculous. But the idea that he's trying to say is that when black people do something, it's considered to be ignorant. When other people do it, is not. First of all, I don't believe other people did that. Second of all, it is ignorant for you to sit here and buy hundreds of dollars a bottle of liquor and just to pour it out, just to show that you don't really care about the money. That's really what it's just a display. It's just an ostentatious display of wealth and just excess. And that's really what it boils down to. There's no cultural continuity. There's no whatever he's trying to say. There's no history behind it. It's just an ostentatious display of wealth. And at a time when so many people are struggling to put food on the table and keep the lights on, it's just not appropriate. People can do what they want to with their money, but there have been times where people go too far in displaying their wealth, and it doesn't end up good for them. So I don't think it's cultural. I just think it's him just trying to justify stupidity. And you know what? That's what he wants to do. That's let him. But don't try to feed us some crap about, oh, the Native Americans did it and it was okay and it wasn't. Man, shut the fuck up. We know that's not true. He, like Yona B said, he probably didn't read the book. He probably skimmed through the pictures. Come on, man, tighten up. All right, I'll leave it here. Thanks, Coco.
I appreciate that, Black Steel, for real. In the chat, Oni said, what kind of stupid shit is this? Oni, talk about it.
Yeah, so what? First off, dude's not Native American, so it's like, what? But like, what? That video, when I saw it, I think I did retweet it. Yeah, it's like them bottles is like $500, $600 each. Okay, some white boy is eating off of them, because he's just eating. He's like, damn, these dudes sure is stupid, But I get it. You try to flex off your wealth. I want y'all to know that I'm in a house right now, big house, bigger than the space I got in New York, right? It's probably 2 bedrooms, but Like I don't occupy my whole space anyway, right? This thing is $200 a month. You know what I'm saying? So these dudes, like the things you could do with your quote unquote excess, and what makes this so stupid is this: the Native Americans are dead. It's like it's like if you're gonna copy any culture, it shouldn't be the people who were wiped out. Like that's already, and I mean, like I'll give it to Black Steel. You know, he's saying, look, they probably never even did this, but like for real, if they actually did burn their surplus, right, and then now they're dead, it's like, dude. And I mean, now of course you could say, hey man, they're dead because of the European. You still dealing with the European. The European that took over these Native Americans is smarter, stronger, and faster now. You know, he's a bigger threat than he's ever been. What are you doing? These are, you know, I don't know who made the prompt. I could guess. You know, I could guess. But yeah, these are the quote unquote, you know, black men that we have to deal with, and it's like, you know, for real, like and I get it. You know, I remember one time I was telling this dude about game and, you know, talking to women, you know, back in New York, and he was like, nah, in the hood we don't talk to women, we just peacock. You know, like, you know, if you're showing off your wealth, then obviously the gold diggers is coming for you, right? And obviously you want the gold diggers, right? All the same, it's like black people should get into a mindset where we can actually be something more than you know, a woman's next meal. You know what I mean? We can be more than showing off, you know, the you know, showing off that we can waste. You know, showing off that we waste our money, right? And I mean, obviously, some woman will be like, "Whoa, he wastes his money. Cool, he could waste his money on me," right? Makes a little sense, right? But like, dude, just go do something productive. Be something productive, right? Do something with your life rather than chasing hoes. You know? Because that's not gonna go anywhere. This sort of stupid stuff. The trouble the thing I see most of the times is when a dude is flexing, 6 months down, he's begging. You know, I can't even tell y'all about I had a cousin, matter of fact, who was like, "This is my trip in Jamaica," and this was a sister. You know, "This is my trip in Jamaica," and then I guess she did have a divorce or something, or she's going through some sort of hard divorce. But yeah, eventually she's like, "Hey, can I borrow some money?" You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you know, she's like, "Oh, look at the lobster I've been eating," blah blah. And you're like, "Look, y'all, if you just follow some basic economics, you can thrive even on a small paycheck." But that's all I'm saying. But these guys are fools. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, these is low, as D Webb would say, these is low vibrational individuals. I call them low energy folks. There's one thing I took. There's maybe a handful of things I took from the Bible from when I was a kid. I'm not a practitioner of it or anything now, but one thing I do remember, and I remember a guy named Miles Monroe saying this, a dead thing can float down a stream. It takes a living thing to go against the current. And that's something I want black folks to recognize, man. Anybody could go and do some low energy thing like buy a $500 bottle. I could do it if I want to. But why would I do that? Right? And if that was someone's culture, as only pointed out in the past, why would I follow that culture when these motherfuckers are either dead or depressed? Right? Like, why would I follow that? Why would you want to justify this nonsense? And then what really irks me is the framing of it in terms of whiteness. Oh, well, you know, when black folks do things that white people don't, dude, it's not even about that. That's a couple of dozen men inside of a club spilling out, as Oni said, $500-600 bottles of liquor. When you could have been putting that towards some child who has a need or bettering yourself in some manner. And this is the low vibrational shit that I can't stand. I can't stand this low vibrational shit. And I like something that Oni said that too. And this is for all the men out there. Stop just living your lives to be a meal, you know, the next meal for a woman, man. Like, come off of that bullshit, man. And actually go and make be something, man. You know, go have passions behind, so go do some race work and have some passion behind that and do something. But we won't get nowhere if the majority of our men are looking at this and justifying it, and our youth, if we're not careful, looking at this and wanting to follow it too. You know? Real Black Gentleman is out there in the chat saying, what's up, peoples? Peace to RBG. Haven't seen you in a minute. Does anyone else want to add any last thoughts to this prompt?
Yes, I want to add a last thought.
Yes, sir.
First of all, let me say this. I don't know if it's this biblical reference or somewhere. I can't remember exactly where I got the quote. But they say, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we'll die. Something to that effect. I can't remember who was the author of that. But the lifestyle is to eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow ain't promised. We can die anyway. So let's live in our excess, because eventually we'll pass on. You know, this is the idea of a man who just really believed that he's gonna live to see 21, and it's an unfortunate belief in reality for a lot of our brothers. But I would tell my generation, and Carl would be mad at me for saying this, but Black Steel, I would tell my generation to be the ones to sell them the bottle of liquor. Be the one to sell them the shovel. Sell them the shovels. You know, if they want to consume or spill out on the ground my 500 bottles of alcohol, I'll sell it to them until I can't sell it to them no more. Now that's bad to see. I know Black Sea ain't like that, but I'll have to benefit off of their ignorance. I'm sorry. I just got to do it. I just gotta do it.
There's nothing wrong with commerce, you know. Hey.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with commerce at all, but I will say we should be a little bit mindful of what we're feeding at the same time too. Since there's no more, seem like there's no more last comments here. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3. Before that, KW7 says peace to you. KW7, he says a fool and his money will part ways. That's a good last word on that prompt. Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 was the Jacksonville, Florida shooting retaliation for the Montgomery, Alabama fight. That should be topic number 3. This came with a link. I believe it's an article on Yahoo. So the title says a white man fatally shoots 3 black people at a Florida store in a hate crime, then kills himself. A masked white man fatally shot 3 black people inside a Jacksonville, Florida Dollar General store in a predominantly African-American neighborhood on Saturday in an attack where he used a gun painted with a swastika, officials said. The shooter, who had also posted racist writings, then killed himself. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters told a news conference that the attack that left 2 men and 1 woman dead was definitely, quote unquote, racially motivated. He hated black people, Waters said, after reviewing the man's writings, which were sent to federal law enforcement officials and at least 1 media outlet shortly before the attack. He added that the gunman acted alone, and there is absolutely no evidence the shooter is part of any larger group. I found that a suspect thing to say, but that's just me. To continue, Waters said the shooter, who was in his 20s, used a Glock handgun and an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, with at least one of them painted with a swastika. He was wearing a bullet-resistant vest. He said the shooter had once been involved in a 2016 domestic violence incident and was once involuntarily committed to a mental hospital for examination. He did not provide further details on those incidents. Officials didn't immediately release the names of the victims or the shooter. The sheriff said the gunman had left behind in his writings evidence that leads investigators to believe that he committed the shooting because it was the 5th anniversary of when another gunman opened fire during a video game tournament in Jacksonville, killing 2 people before fatally shooting himself. The shooting happened just before 2 p.m. at a Dollar General, about 3/4 of a mile from Edward Waters University, a small, historically black university. In a statement, the university said that shortly before the shooting, one of its security officers saw the man at the school's library and asked him to identify himself. When he refused, he was asked to leave. The man returned to his car. Sheriff Waters said the man was spotted putting on his vest and mask before leaving. He said it's unknown if he had originally planned to attack the school. I can't tell you, this is a quote, I can't tell you what his mindset was while he was there, but he did go there, the sheriff said. Edward Waters students were locked down in their dorms for several hours after the shooting. No students or faculty are believed involved, the school said. The shooter had driven to Jacksonville from neighboring Clay County, where he lived with his parents. No surprise. The sheriff said that house was being searched late Saturday. Shortly before the attack, the shooter sent his father a text message telling him to check his computer. The father found the writings and the family notified 911, but the shooting had already begun. This is a day in Jacksonville's history. There's no place for hate in this community, the sheriff said. I'm sickened by this cowardly shooter's personal ideology. He said the investigation will continue. The FBI was helping the sheriff's office and said it had opened a hate crime investigation. Major Donna Deegan said she is, quote unquote, heartbroken. She said, this is a community that has suffered again and again. So many times this is where we end up. This is something that should not and must not continue to happen in our community. Governor Ron DeSantis, after speaking by phone with the sheriff, called the shooter a quote-unquote scumbag and denounced his racist motivation. I guess it takes one to know one. This guy killed himself rather than face the music and accept responsibility for his actions. He took the coward's way out, said DeSantis, who was in Iowa campaigning for the Republican presidential nomination. Both President Joe Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland were briefed on the shooting, officials said. Dollar General's corporate office said in a statement that the company was supporting its Jacksonville employees, quote, as we work closely with law enforcement. Virginia Bradford lives in the neighborhood of modest brick and cinder block houses near the store. She frequently stops at the Dollar General and said she meant to go there Saturday for detergent and bleach, but got sidetracked by other plans. That's my store, Bradford told reporters, looking past patrol cars with flashing lights blocking the street to the store a block away. I know everyone in the store. It's sad. Unsettled by the racist killings, Bradford, who is black, says she doubts she'll ever go back. Quote, I won't even send my kids up there anymore. My nerves are bad. I feel it for her. Penny Jones, how long is this on her? Penny Jones told the Associated Press in a phone interview that she worked at the store located a few blocks away from her home until a few months ago. Quote, I'm just waiting to hear about my coworkers that I used to work with, she said. I don't know if it's safe to move about that neighborhood. Jones added that she was feeling awkward and scared. Rudolph Missick, a national board member of the Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network, was in Jacksonville on Saturday when the shooting occurred. As it began to unfold and I began to see the truth of it, my heart ached on several levels, said Missick, or McKissick. who is a Baptist bishop and senior pastor of the Bethel Church in Jacksonville. The neighborhood of the shooting is known as Newton. It's a black neighborhood. And what we don't want is for it to be painted in some kind of light that it is filled with plight, violence, and decadence. McKissick said. The shooting took place within hours of the conclusion of a commemorative march on Washington in the nation's capital, where organizers drew attention to the growing threat of hate-motivated violence against people of color. Reached by the Associated Press on Saturday evening, march attendee and Jacksonville native Marsha Dean Phelps said learning of the shooting was a death blow. It hurts, Phelps said by phone while on a charter bus home from Washington. Many fellow bus riders began hearing about the deadly shooting in their community just before they all boarded to make the long journey back, she said. It's a neighborhood, a black community that we come out of, said Phelps, 79, who is black. It's where our college is, Edward Waters University. You know what? Okay, it's a few more paragraphs. So, Tonya,
you can give it a break. You can give it a break. We get the gist.
All right, good. With that said, let me hear from Buana first on this one. Buana, what say?
Yeah, it seems like the white supremacist groups, the militia groups in the United States, have decided to take a different tact in terms of dealing with racial issues in America. They seem to take the tact of the terrorists, where you have these lone wolves who somehow they mentally deranged and they go into soft-targeted areas and stage these kinds of shootings. And I'm asking, if he is crazy or deranged, why go at soft targets? Why choose schools? Why choose churches? Why choose grocery stores where people are not necessarily armed? Every Saturday night, Friday night, brothers is be hanging out where they go to the clubs, they hang out on the street corners, they congregate. If you are so hateful in your mind, right? Why don't you just go down to them areas where them brothers them congregating on street corners and in front of certain areas? Go around there. Why? Why? Because they believe that these brothers gonna shoot back. It's such a cowardly act, but it's a reasoned one. Because you crazy when it's time for you to be crazy, but you ain't crazy enough to engage people who have the ability to shoot back and protect themselves. Ain't that strange and funny? That's so strange and funny. But these are the tactics that these people resort to. It's interesting though when I hear about these kinds of incidences, because the brother who I can't remember his name, something Gavin, when he decided to go against the power structure in America, something Gavin, he is banging it out with the police officers. The other brother from Louisiana, Sarah something, Cosmo something, he was fighting against police officers when he staged something. Gun to gun, man to man, arm to arm. The only person who I could remember in a recent past who would have done something like that with a black face was Colin Ferguson. You know, when he pulled up in a train and was shooting unarmed people. But these kinds of things for me it's just so, it's very cowardly. You're going and attacking the most vulnerable people, and you're afraid to go against people who have the ability to fight back or even throw a blow. But I say to my black brothers and sisters in the United States to exercise your Second Amendment, even if it's at a grocery store or even if it's at a church ceremony, because they don't frisk in church, unfortunately. All could come, all in one could come to these vulnerable places. So they'll let anyone in there. I think there was a guy who had an intention of doing a church shooting, but was stopped because the church was the pastor said the church was at its capacity, so they wasn't letting people inside. So he left there and he pulled a gun on someone else, another group of black folks. But they would have permitted him in without frisking him, without searching him, just a random hillbilly. And I'm thinking to myself, at this time and point in American history, my brothers and sisters should have their tentacles up, their feelers up. When people who don't come from your community just putting themselves in your church. They don't want to pray with you. They don't want to shop with you. They don't want to go with you. They have already then decided and committed to a particular act. So it's not about equality for them. It's not about inclusion for them. So my thing is, you must protect yourself at all costs. You must protect yourself at all costs, even if you have to have the Bible in one hand and the gun in another. You know what I mean? Because the reality is, yes, Jesus could take you away to your sweet by and by. But I feel like, you have this life, you want to live it too. And you have a right to live this existence too. So even if I have to defend myself in a church, and blast some white supremacist head off, right in front of the congregation to defend myself, I must do that. So if I have to take a gun to church, there's something I got to do. So I think that the American citizens who have a right to carry arms in all these so-called states, they should do so. I'll stop there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Let's welcome in Brother Bakari this week. Brother Bakari, how are you this week?
What's going on? How you doing?
Good.
I'm good. No, I don't think this is retaliation for what happened in Montgomery. Shit, this is something they've been doing. I don't think it's any retaliation. I don't think this had anything to do with I don't think it had anything to do with Montgomery. But they did what they always do. They choose soft targets. That's why I did a whole show one time about understanding and recognizing threats, which is something we don't do very well when it comes to dealing with these people. But the answer said we should look into somebody said we should look into the Turner Diaries. I don't know what they are, but no, I'm not. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't think it has anything to do with Montgomery, Alabama. I just think it is something they have been doing, and they have been able to get away with it. Mate.
Appreciate that, Brother Bakari. You guys make sure tune in to Brother Bakari's show on Sunday, Mind Your Black Business, Mind Our Black Business. On Friday nights, Smoke One with Brother Bakari on a Friday night. KW7 said, I have a feeling that the Jacksonville shooter is linked to the Buffalo shooter. We should look into the Turner Diaries. If I remember correctly, the Turner Diaries is a fictional story, but they say it's instructional to white folks, to white nationalists in particular, about guerrilla warfare, etc. Trigger Happy 262 says white supremacist shooters are connected through the internet. Ketter says they both wanted to trigger a race war. Interesting. Trigger Happy 262 says they aren't really lone wolves. They are cell terrorists interconnected by the internet and inspired by other shooters. I appreciate that comment. With that said, let me hear from Oni. Oni, what say you to everything you've heard?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brother Bakari that this was obviously not, related to the squabble, I mean, I'm not gonna say I know what this guy was thinking, but clearly he was thinking to celebrate a different, as they say, cowardly act that happened 5 years earlier. What I want to say is this, though. 3 Black people lost their lives. And that's a terrible thing. To just lose your life so meaninglessly, because some guy wanted to, I guess, celebrate something that shouldn't even be celebrated. And the other part of it is that that hatred. I want to say, because like I said, I'm in Africa right now. You don't experience that hatred. Like, you do not experience that. Oh, I hate you because you're Black. I mean, if you go looking for it, maybe you could find it, right? But generally speaking, like nobody. Nobody hates you because you're black, you know? The worst I've experienced maybe is that people want money from me. You know what I mean? Like people want to charge me 50 cents more for whatever it is, you know? Um, and it's just 50 cents, you know? Obviously, by principle, it's like, oh no, why would you charge me 50 cents more? But they're like, hey, you can afford 50 cents more. And even when I'm saying it, people, you guys are hearing it like, wait, just 50 cents? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like they know you can afford 50 more cents. But like you get away from this hatred. Like I feel really good. And I think that's another part of it. Really, I did want to start focusing on the black people who were hated, the black people who lost their lives meaninglessly. Just going to shop for cheap things. Something that we all, occasionally do. Obviously not Brother Bakari, because Brother Bakari don't shop white, but but if you find yourself shopping white, you might go to a Dollar General, I guess, right? But the thing about America too is that it really gets you deranged. Like I could even say for me personally, like I could have been depressed. I have no idea. Um, but like I knew this white guy. Like I only know one white guy really, and for the longest while, like I kind of low key espionage spying on the dude. But basically, he had trouble finding a woman, and finally he did get a woman, and he's in Europe, obviously. So he's much better. But like there's a lot of dudes who cannot find women. Like the Western way of life is really hard, not just on us as black people, but on white folk too, right? Uh, and like Koku was saying, the dude's living with his parents type stuff. And I mean, he's still young, so it's not the worst thing to live with your parents. But some dudes are hopeless. Some dudes, they're not getting no love, they're not getting no attention. Like what I could say is, coming to Africa, like you get that love, you get that attention, you get that, like you get good, real emotions, good, healthy life, healthy living, joyful living. This dude would not do this. This white boy would not do this if he had a joyful living. But it's harder in the West. Now, I'm not saying that, you can't find it in the West, but even if you tie back to the last subject of these dudes just pouring alcohol, just wasting alcohol, how happy are they? Like what is their psychological profile? And that's what's happening with these white guys might lash out and shoot people, but then you have these black men who are just standing around flexing on other black men. Probably, hopefully, I'm hoping, because they want to inspire women, but like even that, long story short, long story short, yeah, it's there is like all I can say to our people is, get out of there, get out of being hated, get out of the psychological turmoil that is the West. If you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm telling you, there's just so much more to life than being hated by somebody and also being depressed. And I'll leave it at that.
I'll tell you the truth on it. I could have listened to you talk about that shit for a little bit longer, because just today, some shit hit me from left field today. And I'm like, damn, boy, like, there's always something. In this fucking place, there's always something. And usually there's always something, in my experience, is usually something to do with money and resources and stuff like that. You're just stretched thin. And there's always something else around the corner. And like hearing you talk about that just now was kind of refreshing. I think those are the conversations we have to have a bit more, to be honest. But anyway, Carl, you heard everything everyone had to say. What say you? Sorry, Black Steel.
That's all right. Just give away my secret identity, why don't you?
I know, right?
Anyway, so my father's family is from Jacksonville. This Dollar General store is actually right down the street from my grandmother's house where she used to live, where she passed. So I know this area. Um, hadn't been there in a while, but I know this area. So something they said in the article, they mentioned about a shooting about 5 years ago at the mall in Jacksonville. They were having a video game tournament, and this white boy was losing. He killed the black boy and killed another person. Then he killed himself. And this also was the anniversary of the March on Washington. Uh, these racists, they like to plan things around events such as commemorations of violence or anything. And my thinking is that he had already planned this, but what happened in Alabama probably pushed him over the edge, and that's when he really started to do this, because you can't let these niggas get too uppity. Is probably what his thinking was. But I just want to say that also the article really went in on saying that this cracker was a lone wolf. He's not connected to anybody else. And we all understand that these white supremacists, they radicalize each other. So they don't really want to they don't really want to aim at the reality that racism is as American as apple pie in baseball. They don't ever want to, they want to point, oh, this person is crazy. This person is sane. Like what Tupac said, he's sane as a motherfucker. So it's not anything they want to try to push it away from the reality that this person is just acting out the institutional violence against black people that has been there since America was a part of Great Britain. All right, before the 13 colonies and so on and so forth. This behavior, this attitude is a part of this country. So they want to make it sound, oh, he's just a lone wolf. He's just acting on his own. He's been Baker acted. He's crazy. No, he's not crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing. Just like the one in Buffalo knew exactly what he was doing. And there was a reference made to the Turner Diaries, which is like a white supremacist Bible almost. It talks about like a future, almost like a post-apocalyptic reality in which white people engage in what they call a racial holy war to cleanse the earth of the mud races. And many of these white supremacists, you know what? I don't like to use the term white supremacists because they're not supreme. The ability to project violence against another group of people does not make you supreme. It makes you a psychopath. So let me say this. These white psychopaths, these sociopaths, they take lessons from this book as a way to plan for their racial holy war against black people, against anybody they deem to be inferior. Of course, top of their list, black people. No, top of their list, Jews. Then right behind the Jews, black people. So their whole goal is to annihilate us because in their mind, they believe in what they call white genocide, which is a completely ridiculous term. So they believe that white people are being killed off and, we're trying to halt their birth rate. So the only way they can compete is to kill us. The solution to their problem is always to kill other people because they're psychopaths. There's nothing supreme about them. But I do understand that they work together, they network with each other, they have social media, 4chan, Stormfront, all these other sites where they can share tactics. They can read these psychopaths' manifestos, what they believed in. So it's definitely not a one-off. The next day, the governor, piece of trash that he is, shows up to the meeting. They booed him. To the one mammy told him to be quiet. We had Bunny Ruckus told him to be quiet and respect the governor. There's nothing to respect because DeSantis has created this atmosphere. It's always been a part of America. This be true, but he has put the gas on this fire, so to speak. So there were some these white psychopaths went to Walt Disney World. They were waving swastikas and they were saying DeSantis country. She never denounced them. Another situation where he has made it legal to where if someone is protesting, you can hit them with your car and not face any civil penalties. He has worked hard with the education board to eliminate Black history in schools, basically saying that Black people gained some skills from slavery that allowed them to benefit. So, this is an all-out attack on Black life, not just in America, but particularly in the state of Florida, which is why, the NAACP, for whatever good they're from, they put out a travel advisory. And I believe this was part of the reason, because the government policies and programs in this state are hostile to Black life. We have to get organized, we have to be armed, and we have to be vigilant. We're not in a position where we can take our eye off the ball, feel comfortable, or feel safe. We are at war with this system. So if that means we all have to be armed at every time, it's an unfortunate reality. There's no other solution. We have to fight. We have to organize for our very survival. And I'll leave that there. Thank you, Koku.
No, absolutely. I like what you said at the end there. Juana said it earlier too. It's time to get armed, man. One of the things I'm learning now in the so-called blue states in America, and especially these big city parts of America, where it seems like they don't want folks to have guns and stuff. They do put up some kind of barriers to entry, so to speak, some deterrence. But what I'm learning in this process is still apply. Still, and if you have to work with some folks who have a track record of getting people their Second Amendment rights, so to speak, go ahead and plunk down the couple of hundred it costs to do it. But it's doable. It's doable. It's not. There was a time where I thought it wasn't doable. Then with some research, I learned that it is doable, but they put these little deterrents up there, like your application fee won't be refunded if you're denied, and who wants to lose hundreds of dollars and stuff. So, but from what I'm learning from this what do you call them again? Firearm club, is typically you're gonna get through. So that fear of they probably won't let me get it, and put that aside. Plunk down your money confidently. Join you a firearm club, where a Black one at that, and be knowledgeable and be ready to protect yourself. Now, here's the thing that no one ever says. Listen, if a guy comes out the blue, and this is kind of what Oni was pointing out, you're going about your life, and some dude just out the blue starts opening fire. You might get killed. That it's a surprise attack. That's just what it is. But if you didn't get killed, you have a chance to stop that person from causing more harm. And that's what I want our people to understand, man. You want to be able to stop the bleeding, so to speak. It's time for us to get armed and stuff. Does anyone else want to add any last words to this prompt?
Yeah, let me say
Yes.
right.
Go ahead, Brother Bakari.
That is something I've been telling folks. That is something I tell folks all the time. You need to prepare. See, we can talk about how they come and how they act and how they shoot and kill and do all that. We can even laugh at the Christians for praying, talk about ain't nobody fighting back. But I always say, look at yourself and see what we're doing. And we ain't doing that. I've been telling people that for years. Like me, I'm not part of I'm not part of either one of the organizations. I'm not part of no NRA, and I'm not part of the Black one either. Not that I have a problem with being part of the Black one. I created my own thing, and I go train. Me personally, I wouldn't live nowhere where I can't have a gun. I have my gun on me at all times. And I also did a show on talking about understanding and recognizing a threat. But we're so gullible or naive the only threat that we normally see is us. So, you know, I know the Christians are going to wait and pray, and a lot of them, not all. So I'm going to stop saying the Christians, the ones they going to show that you're going to see on TV, because I have way more Christian friends with guns and bullets and suited and booted and trained than non-Christian friends. Way more Muslim friends that's suited and booted and trained than non-religious people. So I'm gonna just stop saying Christians. It's just the ones they want you to see on TV. And then what we do is we label them and say, that's how the Christians are. And that's not how Christians are. That's how those people they showed on TV are. And we play, and I'm not going to get back into how we have accepted we are nothing, but we play into their hands all the time. They want us to see that. So the people that say they want to do something, so we can start saying, no, I don't want to deal with them. This is all they do. But if we don't deal with our people and try to build something, because me and my crew and the people I deal with, in all honesty, if it ain't more of us and some go down, we will be okay. We will be able to save and protect ourselves for a minute. But I'm just being honest. I ain't trying to save nobody that don't want to fight with me. And I've let people know that, no, do not come around me. If something happened, I'm going to be the first one to shoot at you and make you go the other way. Because I've been telling people this for years. I stand on the streets and tell people this. I stand out in front of the stores. But we're so nonchalant where we see the only problem we ever see is us until something like this happened. And then we want to dissect it. The only dissecting that needs to be done is us. And we should be asking, why don't we come together as a group of people and stop arguing so we can at least defend ourselves, so we can at least feed ourselves? Because it's about to get worse with the COVID, with everything. And for me, this is I think we should talk preparing. Because when it comes to being ready, majority of Black people ain't ready. How many people right now, if they say we're going to do a shutdown because of the new strain of COVID, can feed themselves? How many people right now got at least 1,000 bullets per gun that they have? How many of us have the paper towel and toilet paper and all that stuff that we need? See, when it happened, it's too late to dissect it. I've been trying to get people to dissect it for years so we can come together and do it. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's another reason I say the Black woman is God, because way more of them have guns and suited and booted than Black men. And on that, and that's who, that's who you see in the range. That's who you see out training more when it comes to Black people, is Black women. And on that, I yield the mic.
I appreciate that, Bakari. Bonnie, you want to add something? Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, let me say this. You notice how the shooter didn't stop to ask whether the person was from another country or not. He just saw a bunch of Black faces, and his goal was to eradicate all the Black faces that he see. So it didn't matter the fact that one of these people was a Black immigrant from somewhere else. He put everybody in the same category and categorized them as one big Negro. So I gonna get rid of the threat. And that's what he decided to do. In terms of what Brother Bakari was saying, now, we don't want to work with one another. And it seems like we have an embedded dislike for one another. And it's my goal, it's our goal collectively to try to disabuse ourselves with that notion, because that notion is embedded inside the mind of Black people for some strange reason. Listen, I listened to an interview by a gentleman named Larry Elder. He was on this show called The Breakfast Club, I think. And he said that the cause of death among Black men from, I think that the age was 14 to 44, was homicide. Not by other people, but by each other. Now, if that statistic is true, I don't know if it is or not, That's a key reference. He said he got it from a governmental source. I don't know if that's true or not. But if it is, that's telling me that we can't we can't reason with one another. We don't particularly care for one another. We are completely emotive when it comes to us dealing with one another. And it goes to almost the level of murder. You know what I mean? If I hear something I don't particularly care for from another black individual who look just like me, it's not that I gonna excuse his behavior. It's not that I gonna allow him the grace that I would allow other communities. But I would let it get to a point where I would even murder him. Number one cause of death among black men in that particular age range. So I say, if that is the case, the solution should be another kind of approach when we dealing with one another. This term of getting together is a good thing. But like I say, what is embedded in the minds of us deeply is this deep self-hatred for one another. So the cure should be a good analysis on where we are and how to cure that problem. And one of which I believe is how we approach one another. Even if it means in the face of sometimes when let me just leave it. I'll just leave it there and I'll just leave it. Let's continue.
No, Juan, I kind of want to build on what you said, because how you said that you and Bakari both said we see each other as the enemy. That is very deliberate. The white people, the Europeans, have always benefited from divide and conquer, and that's been their number one strategy. So when you're able to keep black people at each other's throats, you're not focused on the enemy outside. So that's a very deliberate, which is why I think that as much as we need weapons, we also need political and ideological training. If you're not going to pick up a book, we don't need you picking up a gun. We don't need black people just to be armed. Being armed is a good start, but we're going to have to get rid of some of the propaganda that we've been infected with. We're going to have to really change our ideology and how we view each other. And this is why they always say it's just a lone wolf, because they don't want black people to really come to the same conclusion that Chancellor Williams came to in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. The white man is our enemy. Now, when that in of itself is a revolutionary idea, because we too often we confine acts of racism to just individuals, and we refuse to see it as an institutional issue. It is the white power, the white dominated system behaving the way it's supposed to behave. And once we come to that realization, and then we start to practice self-defense, then we will become a serious threat. So I agree we need weapons, but we got to kill that little white supremacist that exists within the black population that sees each other as the enemy, to where we don't see white people as a threat. When Dylan Roof went into that church in South Carolina, they sat down and they prayed with him. Then he picked up his gun and murdered 9 of them. So they didn't perceive this white cracker as a threat. Not only did he do this, but Dylan Roof had one of his best friends was black. So these people, they keep their hatred deep within, and then when it comes time to, we don't even recognize it and see these people as a threat. We're going to have to really understand what being in this system, being around these demons, has really done to us psychologically, to where we can't even recognize them as being the monsters that they are.
Coco, you this conversation right here could have lasted your whole show. So I'm gonna say this, and I don't, because I keep it here, but I agree with what Carl just said. But and see, when we understand that's what we got to do, right? And I ain't trying to take it back a couple weeks, but I still got to ask the question: why have we internalized that we ain't nothing, and argue with a black man who say a black woman is God. As a matter of fact, he said just for a certain reason, because he know the reaction he's going to get from black men. So if we know this, why do we allow people to tell you ain't shit, ain't about shit, and argue when a black man defends black women, and then we want to find the worst black woman and make her be the representation of all black women? See, we can say it, but do we really believe that and feel that way and want to get away from it? And are we really built? See, this is my thing. Even when he says something about, and I agree with what he's saying, right? So when he says something about everybody don't need a gun, they should get a book. Well, I was in this man's military. It's something that I learned. I don't think all of them need the book. Some of these folks want to be some of these folks deserve to be infantry on the front line. And that's the only book they need to know, is being on the infantry. And it might sound cruel, but I understand how they were trained and why they were trained. And I understand why they had problems with me while I was in, and some of my friends, they had problems with us because they couldn't do the same thing to us that they did to other people. You couldn't convince me that it's good to give up your life, or it's good what you're doing is a great job for America, when America has never given a damn about me. But if you find them ones who infantry and who field artillery, they don't know nothing else. They don't want to know nothing else, especially infantry. They just ready to go fight and kill. And some of our people, that's what they should be. They just on the front line, and the only training they need, it might sound cruel, and the only training they need is to be ready to fight and to be ready to fight and protect our community until we get things in order. I ain't saying don't teach them nothing, but I'm just saying I've seen how it works.
But Brother Bakari, even if you send out your so-called soldiers to put them on the front line, the dum-dums, the bullet catchers on the front lines, to point and shoot at whoever they say the enemy is, even them go through a process of conditioning in terms of who the enemy is, why he is the enemy, why, and then you would know better than I would, but you have to show that that person is even less than a human being. That is a conditioning process involved for you to even get the dum-dums to get out there and put a gun in their hand to have them point and shoot. And I'm saying that if our dum-dums in our community have not been conditioned in the way we would like them to be, what they could do with the guns, because the enemy is conditioning them, they could turn the guns on you. Because where we don't want to go through that process of training and conditioning and properly educating them to show them who the enemies are, they can say you is the enemy because you are undermining what they believe to be true. What they believe to be true. The white man is supposed to be at a certain level. The black man is supposed to be at a certain level. Now, if you try to undermine that philosophy deep down embedded in their mindset, their goal is going to be to undermine you if you don't condition them correctly. This is why I say you must, even with the people who are, let me say annoying, even the people who are most adversarial to your perspective and point of view, you must, in trying to win the war, you must sometimes lose the battle, the little small battles. Because eventually the idea is to win the war. You don't win the war. So all these, like I say, man, I don't want to get off on a tangent. Let's go, man.
What did Thomas Sankara say? Thomas Sankara said that a soldier without political and ideological training is a potential criminal. So I understand exactly what you're saying, Buana, that even arming these people is not enough, because if they don't understand, they don't see white people as the enemy. If they're acculturated to see black people as the enemy, just arming them and putting them on the front line is not going to be enough. Look what's happening in Francophone Africa right now. These black people, they always manage to find a traitor. They always manage to find somebody to betray the black movement. That's why firearm training organization is important, but also political ideological training. We have to understand and see that America, the white dominated system, is a threat to black life, not only in America, but globally. This is a white settler colony that is built on slavery and genocide. And until we see this nation for the threat that it truly is, not just to us, but to the world, we're going to see another shooting happen. They just tried to have another shooting not too long ago, and they stopped the dude. There's going to be another mass shooting until we organize. It's not a few one-offs. It's not a few individuals, but we need to have that training. So yeah, Juan, I agree with you.
So I'm gonna show you something, right? Since I believe in pointing the finger at us, right? I believe in pointing the finger at myself. I ain't pointing the finger, but so I talk about shit and it bothers people, but I'm gonna still talk about it anyway. So what's the purpose of this on YouTube? The purpose of this on YouTube is to have a conversation about black issues, and hopefully you can get as many black people to listen and black people want to come on board. Is that the purpose of this conversation? Is that the purpose of us being here?
No, the purpose of being here is to educate the minds of the people them correctly. There is so much. Let me finish, man. Let me finish. The purpose is to educate the minds of the people them correctly. Brother Bakari, you've been on YouTube just like I've been on YouTube. You see the vast nonsense that's out here, and your mindset and your heart, I hear it, is to do good. But you are dealing, and I think that you don't get this. This is the problem. This is what me and why I can be contend with each other so much. Sometimes, usually I agree with you 100%. But you don't believe the mind of a typical regular black persons are sick. So you coming from the perspective of well-reasoned arguments. And see, let me finish, man. I let you go. So when you hear comments that is adverse to your ear, it's almost like an insult to you because you don't believe black people are sick. Well, you say they crazy the last time I talked to you. So I'm saying that sometimes you have to give people the latitude for being properly directed to get to at least the way you are so you could move them further. This is the problem I have sometimes with my hardliner brothers. But I'll leave it. And let you go. Go ahead, brother.
I got you, and I understand what you're saying. See, the reason I asked that question, we said the same thing. You just said it in a different way. You say to educate. So watch this. I'm going to show you the edge. I'm going to show you the white, because I don't use white supremacy, but since y'all use that word, I'm going to show you the white supremacy education that y'all get. And people don't want to hear it, but I got to talk about it. When I say I'm a defender of black people, and when I said the last time we had this, I said, all I got to do is say HBCU. Don't have to mention the school. Just read the chat after I say HBCU. That's all you got to do. Just go read the chat. And you can read the chat and just see what people started saying. All I said was HBCU. Now, the me and the one dude, Afro Native world, we talked, and we could, and I understood what he was saying. But yet and still, if I mention something black, we have to focus on the negative. And that's the education that y'all, Carl is another one. When I said HBCU, they have to find the negative. We can't find the positive in us. If I say something positive about a black woman, everybody gonna come at me. We got to find the negative. But somebody can get up here and tell you, y'all ain't shit. You ain't no king, you ain't no queen, and y'all accept that, and don't nobody fight it. So you all are given the same education. When I say I'm a defender of black people, I mean that wholeheartedly in every way. I defend the Christians. Because I know all Christians ain't like what they show on TV. But when we allow people to come tell you, you ain't shit, or get mad just because I say HBCU and we search for the negative, but we claim we like history, but I can talk about the history of certain things and certain black people, and black people still search for the negative, I'm going to ask you a question. So what's the difference than the black people that's on YouTube that say they're educating, that allow that type of nonsense to be spread, than the black people who we say just don't know? What's the difference? Or what's the difference in those black people, the one that'll tell you you ain't shit, the one that I can just mention something black and black people get offended, What's the difference in those black people and white people? See, I
Brother Bakari, I don't think. Listen,
I point the finger at me
let
all
me
the
say.
time.
I don't think.
Wait a minute,
Wait,
Carl. You got to let me
I
finish.
thought you was done. My bad. Go ahead. Continue.
See, I point the finger at me all the time, and I have friends that have given me the strong criticism that I say on YouTube, and they've made me sit back and look at me about some of the stuff that I would say about black people. And when they did that, I sat and thought about my daddy, the man I respect more than anybody, my mom and dad, the people I respect more than anybody ever walked the face of this earth. And I thought about some of the things that were said. And when I hear the way black people speak on social media, you would be kicked out of our house. And the only reason my dad wouldn't slap you because you wasn't his child. And I understand why, especially the way black men get mad because I might say a black woman is God. It's almost as if we are jealous of the black woman. Black men is jealous of the black woman, and we are giving the same education to our people that we say we are against. I'm not knocking anybody. That's why I said I point the finger at me, and I had friends made me sit down and look at me, and I didn't defend it. They even recorded me and let me hear it. So I had to correct myself. So if we are friends, listen to what I'm saying. I'll be like, damn, he just being hard. No, listen to some of the things that I'm saying, because I had some people that had to straighten me out, because Bawana is right. I thought everybody should have known everything I knew. But then my friends taught me everybody wouldn't raise like you. Everybody, mama and daddy wasn't in the field like you. Everybody wasn't doing stuff where white folks coming and trying to kill them and you had shootout. Everybody don't come for that. Everybody didn't come from that. And that is something I had to realize. But I had some friends, some real good friends, who sat me down and showed me and made me understand. And I had some real good friends who sat me down and showed me about Christians. Then when I started dealing with these guns more and more and more and more and more, and dealing with people more and more and more and more, more of our people, I realized it's more Christians that's ready here than non-Christians. And all I'm doing is, as a friend, is saying, go back and listen to some of the stuff that we say about black people and ask yourself, what's the difference in the education? I'm not saying you can't ever say nothing about black people, but what I'm saying is some of the negative stuff should be kept to ourselves, just among us, and then we fix it. Because we start saying it publicly, we start to sound like the people that we say is our enemy, which I say, if you ain't black, you're an enemy. It's not just white folks, man. If you ain't black, you white. They're all the same to me. So they're all my enemy. I'm not just focusing on one group of people that's in my way. They're all in our way. Now I give the mic.
All right, so I'm not gonna stay long. I know we've got to move on to the next topic. So I mean, yeah, back to my point about the need for political and ideological education, because many black people do sound like white people when they talk about other black people, and that is because anti-blackness is so pervasive in this society. I mean, you get a strong helping of anti-blackness as a baby, as children in the womb. I mean, they've done so many studies about how anti-blackness can even affect fetuses when they're in the mother's womb. We all know the high rate of death for black women who are pregnant. So even at our most vulnerable, we're still being subjected to racism. So to your point, Bakari, many of us do sound like that because we're all in this system. I don't think that whenever you criticize a black organization or a black institution or whatnot, that is coming from a place of negativity. I think we do need to continuously critique the systems that are supposed to benefit black people. And if these systems do not benefit us as a group, then we need to change those systems. That could be an HBCU, that could be a black-owned business, that could be anything. Nothing is above critique, but it has to be done principled, and it has to be done with a desire to make it better and not just criticize it just because it's something that's black. But yeah, I agree with you in that many of us do sound the same way. Many of us do believe we're not shit. I talked to somebody at work the other day, and he was talking about the reason black countries are poor because Jacob and Esau, and we're cursed by God. I'm like, you have to really swallow a lot of nonsense to believe that African people are somehow cursed. We are not. But again, when you're coming from the indoctrination, the media, the school system, that literally is trying to teach you that black people, that we benefited from slavery. And to the point, it was the person who helped Governor DeSantis come up with this new educational program was a black woman who had the nerve to say that she thanked God for slavery. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And it just kind of underscores the point I'm making, that we need to have, we're going to have to reprogram our people. And it's going to be a long, hard process, but it has to be done because otherwise we're not going to survive.
I want to say something to Brother Bakari, and Brother Bakari know this because I tell him this already. If you approach Detroit Red and tell Detroit Red that the black woman is God, he gonna talk to you crazy. He would have talked to you crazy. But it's only through the process of who Detroit Red start walking amongst that he changed his position from Detroit Red to Malcolm X. Now, I'm not saying that it's our duty and job to do that. But I'm saying that if we say that we are better informed, properly informed, right? It takes time for you to develop from a hustler to a man to the status of God. It takes time and it takes development. Now, and influence too. Now, if our approach is a particular way, then Detroit Red would have never become Detroit Red, because the people who was influencing him would have said, man, listen, man, I don't have time for that, man. This man crazy. I don't want to talk to him, blah, 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 whatever. But with some of our people, I believe that grace should be given, because some of us stand at a particular point where we have some understanding about the world and understanding about our people and where they are. It's not to say that they can't get there. It's just say with time, with influence, with proper instruction and better information, they will have a better decision in their mind to reason out, to say, well, yeah, let me move away from that position and move into this position. And I'm saying that with some of our people, not all, because some of our people you can't rectify what's going on there, like Candace Owens. Some of our people are completely lost, forget about them. But some of our people, through their actions in continuously coming to listen, coming to hear, they are telling you, yeah, we don't believe we shit, but I still finding myself here on a Saturday night. They do it indeed. So I follow what the man do, not necessarily what he's saying. Because it's something that is getting here, that he's hearing, that is instructing him in a way that he want to hear more of. And the more he hear, the more he gonna be tempted to change his position from one point, from the Detroit Red point to the Malcolm X point. And I'm saying that with some of our brothers, not all, some of our brothers, you should give us latitude and grace. And even us here on this panel have been poisoned. We live in the Western world. So that poison can get in. You know what I mean? You can't, like I said the last week, you can't live in a burning house without smelling like smoke. So some of us have been impacted and affected as well. We come here together, we exchange positive ideas until we are mentally able to heal and resolve ourselves to a specific point. And who want to come along with that experience, they'll benefit from that experience. It's no way someone could be around a person like a Brother Bakari and still hold a position after years and years and years as niggas ain't shit. You know why? Because that means Brother Bakari is a failure. So I see that with some of our brothers and sisters, we should have latitude and grace until we reach to where we need to be. We'll get there because some of us have not been properly instructed on a foundational level. On a foundational level, what you get, everybody can get. You know what I mean? So, like I say, man, you have to give some of the brothers grace. And I understand it's frustrating and it's angering and it's pissy off. But who else you gonna give grace to? Grace to if it ain't your brother or your sister. But I'll leave it. I'll leave it.
I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna be quiet, right? So after that, I understand. I hear what you're saying, and I can say I understand what you're saying, right? Because I do. But I can also say this: I understand. As I was growing up, I saw black people that put in this work, and as the older I get, the more I understand why they got tired and why they said, "I'm not doing it no more." I really understand because we said all that, and I agree with what you said. But my question still stands: why is positivity correct? Calling the black woman queen is just something positive. God is positive. Calling the black man king is something positive. Calling the black man God is just something positive. Why is that constantly corrected by black people, but nobody correct when somebody calls you the N-word, or nobody correct all the negativity that is said by black people? So trust me, I do things right now, right? I do things right now that I would never say on YouTube. You know why? Because I don't want to hear black people bullshit. Because don't when Carl say it's okay to critique. If you're going to critique, are you helping? So it's that certain things I won't say. And black people do need to understand that just because somebody is black, or just because an organization is black, don't mean they want to hear your bullshit if you ain't coming to help them. That's why I use Antonio Tarver, professional boxer, Hall of Famer, the first guy that beat Roy Jones Jr. He know boxing. If you want to know probably who gonna win a fight, listen to Antonio Tarver's take, and listen to him break it down. And then listen to him beg for a trainer to let him come and help with the fighter. But Malik Scott, who's the trainer now of Deontay Wilder, and he has several fighters, $1 million trainer, what he said about Antonio Tarver was, you're not, as much as he respects Antonio Tarver, we don't see him as trustworthy. Because after every fight, he says something negative about the trainer and he says something negative about the fighter. And instead of Tarver listening and understanding and having an opportunity to be making millions of dollars training, what he do is he continued to take subtle shots and subtle jabs at these black fighters who he say he pulling for, and at these black trainers. But then after he talked negative about them, let me come and train you. And the answer, and Malik Scott said the exact same thing that I said. Yes, we want to deal with them, but don't nobody want to hear that bullshit publicly all the time. If you have a problem with something that we are doing, come and talk to us and show us. And we gonna have to get to that point. Or once again, we will find men who has put in work, who will get a certain age and say, you know what? I'm tired. Black people don't want to listen. They want to correct what is good, and they give the negative a pass by saying they're not on your level. When I say I'm a defender of black people, I'm going to correct when someone come insulting black people, especially a black woman. That's my job, and I am going to continue to do that. I'm not telling nobody else what to do, but I will say this, because social media is something else. Show me a movement that has gotten started from social media when all we are doing is talking negative about one another. I'm just saying, show me something where we can get going where all we're doing is talking negative about one another. You know why? Somebody would give to the fake museum because all they do is talk negative about other black people together. But show me a movement where black people can really build something and do something together, when the only thing that is always highlighted about anything black is negative. And I ain't talking about coming from nobody else. I'm talking about coming from black people. So I'm not giving them a pass all of the time. that negativity needs to be corrected as well. But that's why I only watch a few channels on YouTube now. YouTube, so black social media is worse than TV. That's just my opinion. I really don't. I watch about 3-4 channels. I watch more comedy on YouTube. Then I watch of people talking about they giving some knowledge, because it's horrible. It's irritating and shit. Me personally, who haven't nearly done as much as the people who I know and admire, but I have done things in my life. Even me, I've gotten tired. And that's why I say there are certain things that I do now, and what I'm a part of, I will never bring it to social media, because don't nobody want to hear the negative shit that black people have to say. Black people don't want to hear that negative shit that black people have to say about them all of the time.
We gotta move on to the next topic. I will say this though. I think black people need to stop doing negative shit too, and then you won't have to hear the criticisms, right? So I think it goes both ways. Me for one, I'm gonna call a spade personally. I'm going to call a spade a spade. You doing fuckery? I'm gonna tell you you're doing fuckery, and that doesn't mean we cannot then have the discussion of how to fix the fuckery or the ramifications of it. So that I just want to add, that's my last word on that prompt. But I don't think criticism is a bad thing. And if black people are tired of hearing negative shit, then stop doing dumb shit, right? You're in a club.
Why can't we do that? Why? But okay, watch this, right? I'm gonna just ask this question. Because see, you talking about the people that doing negative shit. I had a whole 3-month debate. Tell me the negative stuff you know HBCUs do.
No, Bakari, I don't have no problems with HSBC.
No, I know you don't.
So all this kind of stuff, that's something that you and others in the chat have gone back and forth with. I don't have no problems with it.
And that's the point I'm talking about, Koku. Even if they don't know nothing, they search for something negative to put out. That's what I ain't talking about.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like Shoot the Breeze, for example. Sometimes there's going to be some topics that have a story attached, and they're not going to be the most flattering thing that's happening in black society. We're supposed to talk about that. We're supposed to chastise it when it's error. When there's an error, we're supposed to point out error. I'm not going to sit back and pretend that everything is all sweet and it's milk and honey when there's some bullshit going on. Now, the stuff with the the stuff with the HBCUs, that's not my struggle. I support HBCUs. I support what you do for that. I don't have anything negative to say, and I know you weren't talking about me personally. Neither am I talking about you personally, but what I'm saying is criticisms are not a bad thing. Now, we have to be respectful in how we do some of our criticisms, that's for sure. But criticisms are not inherently something bad. I want to point out Jose joined us in the chat, saying, what up, fam? Marcus Gavi's the way is here tonight. She says, good night. Excellent discussion. Earlier, she said, good night, brethren. So I appreciate that. For those of you who joined us tonight. By the way, hit the like button for me. I notice we have more listeners in the here than likes. Hit the like button. That helps the channel, as you know. I gotta move on to the next topic. So, Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 is it fair for only children of the diaspora to be singled out like this? What is this? This takes us to YouTube.
The enemy wants to go out off and flip off on somebody, but you won't get answers that way. So
Parents had a cruise today following student assembly at Bunnell Elementary. That's because only black students were asked to attend. The school district confirms that the kids were brought to that assembly in an effort to improve test scores.
But some parents and community leaders are not buying it. Fox 35's Stephanie Belfamonte spoke with them tonight.
Parents are outraged their Black children were singled out and say the school made them feel like they're just not good enough. NAACP is now working with the district on where we go from here.
Initially in the car, they said, oh, we all got pulled into an assembly, but it was all Black kids.
Jacinda Arrington and Alexis Smith later learned their fourth graders were taken out of class and to an assembly at Bunnell Elementary, along with all the other Black kids in the school. The parents tell me the assembly focused on improving test scores and that their children were told if they didn't have good grades, they'll end up in jail or on the streets.
To me, I feel like it told my child that she's not good enough.
Yeah, exactly that.
The skin, the color of your skin means that you are not good enough, when in fact, she's one of the smartest kids in her class.
They say their kids passed their test too.
Now there's more questions like, why was I taken out of class and singled out with the rest of, the other Black students? Why are we here? If we passed, was it not good enough? Am I not smart enough? Does that not count? All my hard work?
According to the Flagler County School District, this was the school's attempt to motivate the Black children to raise their test scores. Last week's presentation opened up with the statement, quote, AA have underperformed on standardized assessments for the past 3 years. AA meaning African American. The district said in part, quote, while the desire to help this particular subgroup of students is to be commended, how this was done does not meet the expectations we desire among Flagler schools.
I actually thought, what in the world is going on at first?
Dr. Phyllis Pearson is the Flagler Chapter NAACP president and a former principal at Bunnell Elementary. She's been talking with the superintendent and parents.
We can see how we can still help them and support them and never go back to doing such a thing again. It's not right. It's not okay. And I'm sure people want consequences. I understand that, but the consequences, you learn to do better.
She says she will be meeting with the superintendent again to look at ways on how the school can be accountable and take responsibility for what happened. She also says they will continue to work with local schools and empower parents. Reporting in Bunnell, Stephanie Buffmonti, Fox 35 News.
I don't know why the screen was kind of weird. I don't know what's happening here. This is strange. But you guys was able to see that, I'm sure, and hear the whole story. Shoot the Breeze, topic number 4, says, is it fair for only children of the diaspora to be singled out like this? Carl, I'll start with you. What did you think of what you saw in that story piece?
I mean, it was very deliberate. It's definitely not fair, but it was very deliberate. Again, it goes back to what we were saying, how anti-Blackness is pervasive in society. These children were singled out and made to feel inferior, made to feel stupid. I don't know what's on the tests, and I do believe that these standardized tests from somebody who's in education, many of these standardized tests are not a fair measurement of intelligence. And they're teaching to the test, and they're not teaching these children, they're not educating them, they're just teaching them just enough to pass the test. And the children aren't engaged. The education doesn't speak to their particular, to their group, to their struggles, to their strengths. It's all about just learning what's on the test, so you can graduate or you can pass, so the school can get a good grade on the school and bring in more money. And then when these children don't have education that speaks to them, when they're sent home, I don't know what's all on the test, then they try to single out, oh, you're making the school look bad because of your low scores. And they singled out these children to make them feel less than, to make them feel inferior. That was very much a deliberate tactic on behalf of the school. If you want to sit up here and say our students are only at a level 3 of math, then I think that has to be looked at not just on the student level. You have to look at the teachers. You have to look at the parents. Are the parents going over the work in school? Too many times we expect teachers to do everything and the parents nothing. Are you going over your child's homework? Are you reading to them? Are you helping them correct mistakes? It's not enough to just give birth to a child and just send them off into the world and let them run loose. But at the same time, what this school did was, there's no excuse for it. It's unconscionable. It's very deliberate. I understand why why the need for homeschooling is starting to increase more and more for Black children because of incidents like this, where they're going to be mistreated and dehumanized. So yeah, this definitely was not something that should have been singled out the way this was done. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Carl. I think the importance of this story is to show that you need to not send your children to these schools. And if you have to, as you stated, you have to be on top of them and their learning. These white folks know that these standardized tests are biased. We all know this shit. We've known this for the last 30 years or more, right? But they will still do all this stuff to demean these children, right? They'll still do all this stuff to lower their confidence in themselves, etc. But that's all a part of what they do, and this is why you got to keep them away from this stuff. With that, let me throw it to Oni. Oni, what say you?
Peace. Yeah. So initially I was kind of like, I mean, if we were to just buy into the school's argument, hey, look, we're trying to help these kids, right? But like, nah, let's not even, right? Sorry, I'm mad at that. All right. So I was like, when I was in elementary school, we did tracking. Tracking is when you put some kids in what they call the gifted program and some kids not in the gifted program, right? So in the Brooklyn high school, no, Brooklyn elementary school, okay, the gifted classes were filled with white students and token Blacks, and the regular classes, the non-gifted classes, were filled with Black kids and token whites. And there was also like the lowest class, right, which were kind of the ESL kids, right? But that was probably more like in high school or whatever. But my point is that in elementary school, they segregated us, and one of my earliest memories of quote unquote racial injustice, if you will, was a student telling me, "Hey, don't act like you're smart because look at the gifted class. They're all white. We're all Black." And this kid was left back like 3 times. And again, this is an elementary school, so he's, I don't know, like 12 or 13. I don't know what the age is, but he's 3 years older than the rest of us. And he's already feeling inferior. He's like, look, Black people are inferior. Black people are dumber. Just look at, the segregation in front of us, right? So I'm saying this, right? At the end of the day, another people will not educate your children except to be their tools. I could think back to when I was, because like I said, there was tracking. I didn't get to be one of those token Blacks. I was, with the Black kids, which is cool. Retrospect, obviously. But I remember I was still pretty good for a non-gifted student. You know what I'm saying? To the point where I got an award by the history department in my high school. And what they gave me though, they gave me a book, and it was like the autobiography of W.B. Du Bois. So as to say that, like I might have been, exhibiting a few radicalisms, and all that kind of stuff back then, and they were like, no. Look at this. This is the guy you should be like. Booker T, not Booker T. Washington. Who did I say? W.B. Du Bois. Try to be like W.B. Du Bois. For those you don't know, W.B. Du Bois was one of the people who sabotaged Marcus Garvey's UNIA effort in Liberia and promoted the Firestone debacle, so on and so forth. But my point being that they wanted me to be a tool. That's all the system is for. That's all their school system is for. So if you're sending your child to their school, right? What do you expect? And here's the thing: they're saying that they don't need most of you. And I just want to point out this: if you guys see the graphic, it was saying that 34% or 31% or something like that passed, or 34% passed. No, right, 34% passed. They need 41%. You know what I mean? So right here, matter of fact, 32% passed. We're supposed to have at least 41%. They don't care about you. You are just something for them to get, continue to get funding. That's it. They don't get 41% barely passing. That's all they want from you. You sending your child there and you thinking, oh man, I'm doing the right thing. Okay, that's fine. But believe me when I tell you, they do not care about you. And I can tell y'all, when I was because I was actually a smart kid, right? And I used to beg them, oh man, let me get into the the gifted program. Let me get into the gifted program. I don't know, self-esteem things. I don't know, right? And they were like, pretty much like, sorry, N-word, we have our quota. Now they didn't say that, but I remember. I'll tell you guys, how you knew everything was messed up. So I was actually good at math, right? And so I actually got, so there's like the high school regions. It was like high school regions A. I got a perfect score. So that was like the highest score in the school, obviously. Because to me, it was the highest score in the city, right? So I got a perfect score on this thing. And they were still like, no, you can't go into the gifted math class. And I was like, wait, but I got the highest score in the school. They were like, yeah, we don't care. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it kind of makes me a little sad thinking about it in retrospect. But like, they don't care about you. They're not trying to train you. There's nothing. And that's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a real messed up story there, to be honest with you, Oni. Let me hear from Buana. Buana, what's it?
Yeah, I would tell my kids and Oni's kids and Brother Bakari's kids and all the other black children that academic success does not equate to financial success or even life success. There are other things that goes in to turning a child in a successful black man or woman. Now I understand that these things are heavily laced, these academic institutions are heavily laced with standardized testing. You gotta test for this, you gotta test for that, whatever. But it has no real world effect. In fact, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies in America, you will find high school dropouts, you will find college dropouts, you will find people who even visit any academic institution. So the premise of I may not necessarily be able to get a A in a math class, but mean that I'll be a failure in life is a nonsense. It's a falsehood that they sell to young people. Now I am a believer in education. I think that black people should be properly informed and properly educated. Whether if it's by formal institution or whether it's by you visiting libraries and properly informing yourself. But what these black children do have is America is run by credit score. As long as I graduate and have a clean credit score, and I could use this thing called what's the word? Okay. Reserved spending habits. If I watch my money and I get $20,000 as a 21-year-old, I could buy my first house and go into real estate and eventually become a millionaire if I work that right. If I work that right. The whole idea of me being able to get an A or be in school, equate to me being a success in life is a nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense. Another thing is that intellectually, children have openings at different points. You can't just say that, oh, because I didn't get a grade at this point, I'm a fool or I'm a failure or whatever. They have intellectual openings at different points in their lives. Some people have it in the first grade, some people have it in the seventh grade, some people have it in the 12th grade, some people have it long after they leave universities and colleges. And they educated themselves to a point to where they could become a success in their own right. So I'm not going to disrespect the whole situation of academia, but I would just only suggest that the idea that you're only going to be a life success based on the fact that I was able to get a 4.0 in university or high school is a ridiculous notion, because there's so many other people who've proven that to be a false notion. False notion. Now, we do need scientists, we do need doctors, we do need people in the so-called formal professions, but also we need thinkers, we need businessmen, we need people who could innovate, and innovate sometimes don't come within the structure of the so-called academic institution. Sometimes people have to think outside the box to recreate the world, and there are many people who've done it. So I understand that with parents are very concerned, because parents want to see their children prosper. Parents want to see them children become the best of themselves. But it's not only within an academic institution where you can become your best self. Sometimes there are many men who've become their best self outside of the so-called academic institution. But they shouldn't be mistreated. They shouldn't be singled out. I think it's a wrong thing to do. But I also believe that we as a community should take two notes. One, within the formal setting, to be formally instructed to learn how to count, how to add, do simple things like that. But the other note that we should take is outside of the institution, where we know who we are as a people. We know what the situation we are currently in. So we need to act accordingly. We need to act accordingly and be clever and use wisdom outside of the institution, because we could think for ourselves as well. Because we know the institutions are going to brainwash us in a particular way, but we must also brainwash ourselves. This goes back to Brother Bakari's statements of sending positive messages and informing your children, propagandizing your children in a positive way and manner, and viewing their world through their eyes, not only through the eyes of the institution. So I don't know. I see this in two different kinds of ways and manner, in properly preparing children to become well-informed human beings and adults. But I don't know. You're in America, you're in the beast, the belly of the beast, the proverbial belly of the beast, and they only can do certain things, in particular with Black children. But the onus is on the parents to properly instruct their children in how to function in American society, to make well-informed adults and human beings. Don't put so much importance on whether this institution is going to properly instruct your child. The onus is on you. So you're supposed to exercise some degree of agency on where you want your child to go and how you want your child to think, and a way and manner in regards to your child being a properly functioning human being or citizen in that particular society. But I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Bakari in the chat said, should those Black children be critiqued? Or is it a problem because the people critiquing Black children is white? And I'll just say this quickly before I throw it to Bakari to say his part. Is the first thing I said was, me personally, it's the system. I don't even see why I would critique the children per se, but I would critique the system that they're in. And similar to what Buana just said and Oni and Black Steel, I would only ask that the parents of these children be more diligent. And I don't think that's a critique. I think that's just a suggestion. But Bakari, what say you to all of it?
that was a little sarcasm and serious at the same time. But my point to that is, of course, they picked them because they were black and that's what they wanted to do. That's why I believe in positive reinforcement. See, the problem that a lot of people have with the school system, I understand. But me per se, I didn't have that same problem because I taught my kids at home. It was things at school. They learn to be social at school. Shit, certain math, I damn sure can't teach them at home. So most people say they're doing homeschooling. Be honest, they're gonna need to. Now, I don't even understand the need for algebra and geometry. Me personally, I don't understand the need for that. But I taught my kids at home, and I would tell my children, give them the answer that they want on their test, as long as you remember the real answers, the truthful answers, especially about history. I've been through that with my son when my son had the highest average in the whole school, but he was not selected for a special program because they said his his imagination wasn't good enough. And so the next time they asked, and we going through that, I forget what it's called, and we want your son to be, and we hope your son want to join this year and do the right things that need to be done. And as my son sat next to me, I told that woman, I like, look, y'all white folks will never in y'all life have the opportunity to tell my child he ain't good enough for nothing. He the smartest person in his school. That's good enough for him. And if you mention anything about your accelerated classes to my child, y'all will have a problem with me. Y'all mad because he's smarter than all these white folk. But see, that's me. And I told him they better not, and he could not go into accelerated programming in that school. He did it when we went to another school, but I would not allow it in there. But hey, that's when positive reinforcement is needed. But I asked that question kind of like joking, like, shit, maybe they're critiquing the student. Maybe the student and us doing what they're supposed to do. Or do we see, and Carl said chill, but in a way or do we see a problem with them critiquing and seeing something wrong because they're white? Now, I know why they are doing it, but I did ask that question.
If Brother Bakari was my dad, and Brother Bakari showed me how to convert industrial bleach into commercial bleach, where I can knock on all of my friends' mothers' houses in high school and sell them bleach, and rather than them buying Clorox bleach, by the time I graduate, I would have homes and be able to give my friends in high school jobs. Should it matter whether I could pass a school exam or not?
Well, I agree, and I think also too that these schools are not really so meant to educate, but to indoctrinate and teach to the test. I was in a couple gifted classes in high school, but I remember my mother had to fight for me. My mother used to come out to that school and raise hell because I was a smart black boy. I enjoyed reading, and I was punished for reading in class. And my mother, I remember this, I was in fourth grade, and she said that if it was a little white boy who enjoyed reading, that would be encouraged. But here, my black son who loves to read, when you call him reading in class, you put him outside the classroom. What is he? He's not learning anything, but you made an example out of him. So I remember that so vividly. Um, and I didn't get taken out of school, but I know that she was on those people. And one thing I know about many times these schools, if you get lax with your child, if you're not showing up to the conferences, if you're not checking the homework, these schools will definitely put these children on the school to prison pipeline. So if you're not able to get your kids out of school, understand that you're going to have to be vigilant. You're going to have to be on top of these schools, so that way they don't put your black child, in a box. So I just said that just to kind of understand that, again, these people are our enemy, and even black children aren't safe from their wrath. So I'll leave it there. That's my thoughts on that.
Let's welcome in Real Black Gentleman this week. Real Black Gentleman, what's saying?
Man, what's up? I'm not going to be long. My whole thing is just the whole, I mean, I don't have kids, but, you know, I went to school, right? Like, the whole idea in the pretext of all of it, where you're just going to separate out black people, you know what I'm saying, in the context of what's going on in Florida, that anywhere in and of itself, I mean, that's like, you know what I'm saying, that's major vulnerability. That's like, that's all your eggs in one basket type situation. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like anything like, I mean, I see Florida and I'll say this. I don't want black people to run away from Florida. I don't like, I mean, geospatially and geopolitically, it's not, you don't want to just kind of scatter inland. You know what I'm saying? I really don't think that's smart. When the NCAA says that shit, they only embolden more white people to like act out and do white things. The whole like education system in Florida is being exposed as just a creationist crock pot of, you know what I'm saying? They're going to start making up stuff as they go along. So, I mean, that's one thing to always keep your eye on. And, you know, they want to use Florida as this, they really want to like purge black people out of Florida. And the whole thing is like, when I sit here and see groups of black people being, you know, corralled together, you know what I'm saying? That's scary. I mean, I don't like that. The whole, where it said the problem, African Americans, you know what I'm saying, are performing at 32%. We are supposed to, is that what they said to the kids? And the whole idea that they would even invoke, you know, the punitiveness of the full weight of the American justice system on them kids, that, you know what I'm saying, out of line, you know what I'm saying? Like, but if it's happening there, who knows where else it's happening to? Maybe not to the same degree. Maybe it was like 80% black kids, you know what I'm saying, sprinkling in a couple white boys or so. These are the kind of things that, I mean, it's ugly. I mean, black people definitely need the homeschooler and be autodidactic and what Warren was talking about, the whole just, you know, school itself. I mean, oh geez, I mean, I wouldn't want to send my kids to a lot of schools around me just on the strength. Like, if I had kids, it's like one of those things where it's like, I better want to homeschool and put, you know, knowledge in my child's head. I better want to do that. I better want him to be a champion at 10. I better. You know what I'm saying? I better want him to understand the world around him better than people twice his age. I better want that. You know what I'm saying? Like, see, I mean, who are they saying that to? We are supposed to have 41. Like, are you saying that to the kids? Like, I don't know. I don't want to keep rambling. It's ugly. Just keep an eye on. And one thing I want to say about Florida, right? Going back to that, the shooting, right? You know, the whole shooting in Florida. Then you had the hurricane, right? And I don't know if anyone else heard this, right? You had DeSantis making a big emphasis about looting. And if you loot, we will shoot. You know, as everyone knows, this is a Second Amendment state. Now, it's incredibly insensitive in light of the fact you just had a dude shoot up a store. And we all know that stores and places tend to be looted. You know, it's ugly. I mean, call it what it is. You know what I'm saying? I'm not cool with any of that. Florida's getting real froggy. And I mean, I would say black people should, you know, put more emphasis in Florida. Don't believe the NAACP and leaving out. You don't end up in NAACP duplicitous already. So, like, you know, black people in Florida, hold your ground. And you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna pass the mic.
Real Black Gentleman. I don't know if you ever seen the Wolf of Wall Street. But like DiCaprio said in Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not fucking leaving. So I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I'm not fucking leaving.
Let's get Oni briefly before I move on to the last topic for tonight. Oni.
Yeah, I was just gonna reinforce what Black Steel was saying. If you're So basically, how it worked back in the day for me, if your parent advocates for you, and you're all right, you can advance. But my mother, Buana says, she was a foreigner, right? So she didn't understand that, like a parent's advocacy meant a lot, and she kind of thought I should do everything by myself. But I would like tell her, hey, look, no, the way it works here in America, at least, is that like if your parent advocates for you, and that's what something that a classmate told me. But I'll just add to that. These days, unfortunately, you probably see that crazy feminist type in those gifted programs now today, and so there's an example of this woman who was complaining that her kid was saying girls wear dresses or something like that, and she's like, ew, he's a misogynist, that kind of nonsense. So watch out. I mean, so there's that negative, but the positive is that if you do like in this school system here in America, it's something that maybe most Americans would know, because I guess Carl was saying that his mother knew. One of the things is that, yeah, if you advocate for your kid and your kid is good, you can probably get them into the higher classes. But like I said, it might be that unfortunately a lot of the feminist type are that. So watch out. It's a double-edged sword. I kind of didn't mind the experience in the quote unquote lower classes, if you will. Anyway, that's it.
All right, good discussion, gentlemen. By the way, Marcus Garvey is away, and Matron, other women who tune in, you guys should come on the panel sometimes. It'll be good to hear a Black woman's perspective as well. Let's go to Shoot Breeze topic number 5, the last one for tonight. Kind of a long one. Shoot Breeze topic number 5 says Europeans have a better idea of their cultural unity and cause disarray in Africa of our cultural unity through linguistics. Doesn't this prove that cultural cradles can exist and that Africa can in fact have one cultural / foundation / substratum / cradle? Okay, again, guys, let's kind of make these a 200 what's the word they use again? A 200 character limit or whatever, so they don't break up. But this came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube. So we'll check out the video, and then, as always, we'll discuss.
Wondrium for sponsoring this video. It's well known that the Romans equated their king of the gods, Jupiter, with the Greek king of the gods, Zeus. But it wasn't until my college Greek class that I learned that these two gods are not just related mythologically, but also linguistically. How does that work? Because Zeus and Jupiter sound very different. Let's take Jupiter first. In Latin, his name would have been pronounced something like Jupiter. This itself could be broken down into its proto-Italic roots, deus and pater. Deus roughly meaning day or sky, and pater meaning father, which itself derives from an even more ancient root, deus pater, or sky father. And here's where we start seeing the similarities to Zeus. The ancient Greek letter zeta is not a 100% equivalent to the English Z. It probably had a bit of a D sound to it. So from Deus, we eventually get Zeus. And in fact, we sometimes see Zeus rendered as Zeopater in Greek literature. But Zeus and Jupiter are not the only ones to share this linguistic connection. Consider Dyauspater, the sky deity from the ancient Sanskrit text, the Rig Veda, one of the Hindu sacred texts. Wait a minute, Sanskrit, ancient Vedic text? Now, it makes sense that ancient Latin and Greek might share some similar words because of their close geographic proximity and overlapping histories. But an ancient Vedic god shares the same name too? What's going on here? How could this one name sound so similar across so many different cultures, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years? Throughout the 1700s and 1800s, linguists started to notice these similarities across different languages spanning a huge swath of cultures and regions. So many languages seem to be related. And not just similar vocabularies, but even similar grammar and syntax. Scholars dubbed this web of related languages the Indo-European language family. which is in fact the largest language family in the family of language families, with 46% of humanity speaking an Indo-European language. But historical linguists didn't stop there. If all these Indo-European languages branched out across the world, can we follow those branches back to the original trunk of the tree and reconstruct an ancestral root language underneath it all? And if we can reconstruct that prehistoric language, can we reconstruct their religion too? Historical linguists have attempted to reconstruct what's called the Proto-Indo-European language, or PIE, a theoretical ancestor of all the modern Indo-European languages. The tricky thing is, this is a completely prehistoric language. No direct written evidence for it exists. Our oldest archaeological evidence for Indo-European languages shows that the family tree had already branched out over thousands and thousands of kilometers by the Bronze Age. Evidence for this comes from languages like Vedic Sanskrit, the Hittite language in Anatolia, and the Old Iranian language Avestan. So Proto-Indo-European would have likely been spoken sometime before 2000 BCE. But in order to reconstruct it, we need to peer into the past beyond our ancient textual sources. Historical linguists do this through a completely inductive process. They infer conclusions by comparing words in different Indo-European languages and tracing backward to a hypothetical ancestral word. They can do this because the sounds of human language tend to develop in predictable ways over the course of centuries. For example, it's very normal for a P sound to eventually turn into an F sound in languages all over the world. This is why the Latin word pater and the English word father can both stem from the same Proto-Indo-European root. The word just took a different path in Proto-Germanic as the P sound slowly morphed into an F sound. So by following the regularities of sound changes, words in Indo-European languages are compared sound by sound, going through each sound in each word in each branch to see if they can converge on one unique sequence of sounds that could have evolved into all of them by known rules. By using this method, historical linguists have constructed hundreds of Proto-Indo-European words. Words like dwo for the number 2, meter for mother, and podes for foot. As the argument goes, the fact that the word for the number 2 begins with a D sound in so many languages, from Hindi to Spanish, must mean that these languages retained the sound of some ancestral word for the number 2 that also began with a D thousands of years ago. Now, it's very fair to ask, how real are these reconstructed words, since we have no hard evidence for them? Well, linguists continue to debate that very question. And in fact, that asterisk before these Proto-Indo-European words is meant to alert readers that these words do not appear in natural language. They are reconstructions. Many argue that we're recreating a vague approximation at best. The scholars of Indo-European studies, J.P. Mallory and D.Q. Adams, make the very good point that whatever this language sounded like, it undoubtedly had dialects, like any language. And yet we only create this one ancestral language. But a vague approximation is still an approximation. Mallory and Adams argue that if you traveled back in time to 3300 BCE, armed with a reconstructed Proto-Indo-European lexicon, you'd probably find moments of understanding with these Neolithic speakers. Moreover, archaeologists have also discovered ancient Hittite and Mycenaean Greek inscriptions with sounds that historical linguists had already predicted should exist. So this comparative method has been proven to work with real-world archaeological evidence. You might also be asking, well, why stop at Proto-Indo-European? It's not like this hypothetical ancestral language popped into existence from nothing. It undoubtedly had ancestors too. Why not go back even more to pre-Proto-Indo-European, or proto-pre-Proto-Indo-European, or the origins of human speech itself? Well, historical linguists have tried to do that, but they generally stop at Proto-Indo-European because that's the farthest back most think the comparative method can carry us with a reasonable degree of certainty. But can we dig deeper than the Proto-Indo-European lexicon? If we can reconstruct the form and meaning of certain words over the course of thousands of years, then perhaps we can also reconstruct the society, economy, and environment implied by those words. For example, the fact that words like sheep, wool, and weaving existed in Proto-Indo-European means that we can reasonably reconstruct an economy that involved shepherds and weavers. So can we reconstruct their religion as well, based on words alone? Reconstruct the beliefs, rituals, and myths attached to their religious words? Let's return to the concept of God. Historical linguists argue that the Proto-Indo-European word for God sounded something like Deus. This is reconstructed by comparing words in later Indo-European languages. In Latin, we have the word Deus. In Sanskrit, Deva. In Lithuanian, Dievas. And Deva in Avestan, words that all refer to some sort of superhuman entity or being. This hypothetical ancestral word Deus seems to derive from a root word for daylit sky, Dieu, from which we get the name Zeus, and Dei, meaning brightness in general. Thus, scholars theorize that the word Deus was not just a generic term for any god, but specifically celestial gods or sky gods, as opposed to underworld gods or intermediary beings like demons or ghosts. There's even a possibility.
I'm going to end it there. I get the idea, and Trigger Happy has also, in the chat, he's also kind of explained the meaning behind the prompt or the wording of the prompt. But if you guys want to look it up and see the rest of it, this is the video here, Indo-European Skyfather. You guys can check it out when you have a chance. In fact, what I'll do, I'll just copy the link now and put it in the chat. And you guys can check that out when you can. But for time's sake, I think we get the idea, and I think it's kind of well done after Trigger Happy explains what the prompt means. Let's start off with Real Black Gentleman, because you were commenting in the chat. What say you to what you just heard just now at the prompt?
Well, I mean, my thing, I try to study etymology in the root, you know what I'm saying, the roots of, you know what I'm saying, English, just so that I can understand what it is that I am talking about. And that, so when I express myself, the words that I used are most likely to be comprehended with expressly to the person who's hearing me. You know what I'm saying? I always like, I look at there's an online etymology dictionary that I use, and I always realize that, you know, Kemet was doing what it did. It had its language. It was doing what it's doing. Now, if we go on the principle, you know what I'm saying, that these white folks was running around, didn't really have a language, a written language like that black people clearly probably had for, you know what I'm saying, tens of thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? Who are we to say that what they call Indo-European doesn't really come from black people? And, you know, I know about the whole Aryan thing. You know, that's why, you know, the Nazis were always trying to go off into India. You know, the whole Aryan invasion of India is when them white people came up from like Central Asia. You know, those are like Turkish, Siberianish people. You know what I'm saying? Those are probably the Denisovian type peoples and stuff. But it's like, you know, I've heard that you know what I'm saying, when we talk about Alexander the Great, he went all up into India. There's always been this connection. A lot of these Greeks and Latins, you know, when we talk the Latin, I have a crazy theory about Latin. I'm pretty sure that the Latins is part of these like KWAZ kind of Central Europeanish people, Turkish kind of peoples that kind of, you know, when we even say Latin, you know, there's a people who came into Rome were called the Latini. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Kemetic gods, Al-Lat. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this stuff is all the same from that whole Central Asian, beyond the Caucasus, the steeps of Central Asia. When you look at the map and you see that big old Asia, it's like you kind of curious. That's where all them white people come from. Kind of just on the border of them ice. You can see it right there on the map. A lot of them hills was kind of green. Yeah, that's the caves and hills. When Khalid Muhammad said the caves and hills of Europe, he was part right. There's also caves and hills in Asia as well, right? So, you know, just center it right. Because, I mean, that's my whole thing. Is like when we talk about white people don't come from Europe. They went into Europe. Because, I mean, there's black people there before white people came in. And a lot of these Khazaric, you know what I'm saying, peoples, you know what I'm saying? That's why people say, like, the Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians and the Catholics and shit are all related. Because, you know what I'm saying, they all come from the same peoples. I'm pretty sure, you know what I'm saying, I see the history. I've seen the maps of peoples throughout the world on an objective sense. Throw the religion out of it. Peoples move around, man. Like this Indo-European thing is just white people just trying to get a greater, you know, trans Eurasian thing going, so that they can be like, well, we all, basically, we're all the same. We all kind of have straight hair, kind of, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of, crassly how I see it, man. It's like I know what the purpose is trying to say. Yeah, they're trying to figure out where they come from. They've been meandering around the globe and trampling all over their own footsteps so much that they don't know where they come from. You know what I'm saying? A lot of black people know where they come from. You know what I'm saying? They know, they know that, you know what I'm saying? These white people don't come from Asia. They come from, these white people don't come from Europe. They come from Asia. So a lot of times we call the white man European, we give them too much credit. Because again, Europe is the name of a black woman. You know what I'm saying? It's like these little things that are like glaring. You know what I'm saying? These white people are trying to like lock up into Europe, you know what I'm saying? Fortress Europe and stuff, trying to like claim Europe is like extra white. And that at the same time, they kind of want Asia to. That's what all this NATO trying to move eastward. It's like, there's always separations, and people's going to be people. They kind of break up and they kind of like have their own little idea. Look, it's not confusing to me. I know what this language in linguistics is about. You know what I'm saying? The white marauders then reach the Atlantic, and it's like, oh shoot, what's going on? Like, where did we come from? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna pass the mic.
Appreciate that, real black gentleman. Oni might know this, so I'll go to Oni next. Is there a similar? Is there a version of this in Africa to say that the African languages, because there's many of them, but they have these, how do I put it? They have this like similar ancestry, like there's a single language, blah, 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 and all the other languages came from it. Do you know that? And if so, talk about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing about it. So, the irony is Trigger Happy asked about, mentioned our brother Kanji who is really against the terminology Bantu. But the thing that everybody knows about the Bantu was, I think actually Trigger might have said it right here. Pushback on linguistic colonialism because it's how they justify make the argument that Bantu migration was imperialism. Yeah, but anyway, something about the Bantu. So there is what they call Proto-Bantu. Basically, the Bantu are like 70% of our ancestors in Africa, something like that. Like if you buy into the Bantu thing, but it's basically a linguistic family, if you will, and they have this quote unquote idea of a Proto-Bantu, i.e., what they found was that a lot of languages in Africa share, similar terminology, similar phraseology, particularly around the idea of iron and forging metals and agriculture, that kind of stuff, to the point where, at least earlier linguists would suspect that this was a group of Africans who traveled, throughout Africa, spreading iron technology and, like fire and not fire per se, like people didn't have fire, but like, like agricultural techniques, iron tools, and that kind of stuff. Now, granted, I don't really know. I know that there's, I know at least my brother Kamji has something against the use of the word Bantu. It looks like Trigger Happy is saying it was made by the Nazis. I don't know, but like that's pretty much the what I learned in like what was taught in university. Obviously, 20 years ago or whatever, right? So that's pretty much it. Like that would be the group. Like the idea is that you could see that throughout Africa at some point in time, originating possibly in West Africa, but spreading throughout, to South Africa, to East Africa, so on and so forth. This idea of iron technology and agriculture and that sort of stuff. And that's pretty much, I think that's one of those early languages. Obviously, there's the Kemetic languages, and Chegon Job was big at showing the relationship between Wolof and the Meta Nature, the language of the Meta Nature, but that would be a more distant connection than this alleged Bantu one. That's all I can say.
I appreciate that clarity there. Yeah, Trigger Happy said our scholars are working on kind of classifying our language groups and stuff, similar to how these white folks here are doing it. So that's promising. I hope to. I know Camgiverse does a lot of it. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it goes a little over my head, which is why he and I are supposed to have this conversation, and I just can't find the time yet. But I do think it's important that we kind of get away from the language that's been imposed on us, those of us out in the West, but even on the continent too. I think it's important that we get back to our languages and our own understandings and terminology for, like, God or whatever. I think that is important. Let me hear from Black Steel. Black Steel, you heard everything Oni said. Real black gentleman. What say you?
Well, one thing I thought it was interesting how he mentioned that 46% of the world's people speak an Indo-European language. We have really been colonized, not just African people, but globally. You have entire language groups that are now extinct because all of the native speakers were either killed or assimilated into another language. And I think the 5 biggest languages on earth are English, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi, and Mandarin Chinese. And then every other language is coming in at low speakers. And some of them, I know there's some Native American languages that are down to like maybe 20 speakers. It's crazy when we think about how much colonization has been done. Because when you lose a language, you lose a way to understand the world. And I think that that's such a horrible thing. It's not just animals and people that can go extinct. It goes to a way of eliminating a way of life. But just to the point, to the original prompt. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Let me keep it on topic. So yeah, I think that Africa probably had a similar diffusion of languages over time. I think that there are many languages that can be understood, in dialects and whatnot. So I think there can be cultural unity based on the history of these languages. I think that's a very good point. I don't expect us all to speak the same language, but I do think that it benefits us to be multilingual in African languages too. That's enough of just speaking French. And I hate the term Francophone Africa. These people speak French because France is coming in and colonized and stole their shit. I hate that term. These people are not Frenchmen. These people are subjects of the French Empire. So I think that as we start to lean more towards speaking our own language and connecting and realizing our cultural unity, that's something that we're going to have to do to organize for our liberation. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Coach.
I appreciate that, Carl. I'm interested to hear what Bakari has to say about it. Bakari, what say you?
I would say we need our own language. I understand the importance of language. I remember when they said something, started saying black people speak Ebonics. And I'm finna say this, and I don't have my books pulled up. But then I had books where there was like the reason they were saying speaking Ebonics, especially in the South, we still had over 100. What was it? It was between 100 and 150 Bantu words saying the way we say certain things. Like, just for example, one word, tote, how we tote stuff. People would say, I don't think that's something people up north said a lot. I know in Chicago when I went there, they didn't say it a lot. But we still had some African words in our language in this American dialect that we speak, because we don't truly speak English. I tell people we speak American. But when they told us we speak Ebonics, so in order to prove to them that we can speak proper, as some people say proper English, I say proper American, but to prove to them we can speak proper English or American, whatever you want to call it, we got away from the Ebonics speaking. So I do understand the importance of language, so you can communicate, so you can communicate with your people, and so everybody don't always know what we're saying. So now what he're talking about with the Indo-European languages and all that, and the whole, and what do you say, 46% of the world? Well, you know, shit, a lot of people speak it due to I guess business, I don't know, and that's European countries. That's you know, a lot of those European countries also speak the same language. Not that I give a damn, but I'm just saying. But that's all I have to say about language and about this prompt.
Appreciate you, Bakari. Again, you guys make sure tune into Bakari's show. Subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. I guess that brings me to Buana. Buana, you got some clarity from Trigger Happy in the chat. What say you now to what you saw?
Well, I hope I do Trigger Happy justice in my answer. But let me first say this. There is formal linguistics, and I believe that African people throughout the world should have a formal language that we speak. Now, there was an old debate going on whether we should speak Kiswahili or Toi or one of the formalized languages in Africa. But there is always, and I believe that there should be a reference in, or where we should have some kind of collective continuity in us speaking one particular language, even though Africa itself is a lot of distinctness and a lot of differences and a lot of nuances that go throughout Africa and in the Western world as well. But I would also say, don't just stop at linguistics and language. We should also focus on our strengths, where there is cultural continuity, where there is cultural collectivity in what we see here in the Western world and even in Africa. For instance, if you look at the spirituality that exists, the voodoo that's practiced in Haiti is very similar to the voodoo that's practiced in Benin. It's very similar to the Santeria. It's very similar to the Candomblé in Brazil, where they have the loas in exchange for the orishas, etc., and so forth. There's cultural continuity and collectivity there. That's a strength that we could focus on. Now, linguistically, we still colonize individually in our own respective languages, whether it's Portuguese, Spanish, or whatever. But something that is unifying is the spirituality. It's the spirituality. Not only that, let's not stop there. Let's go over to the music. Even though we speak in the proverbial pidgin English, the Nigerians say pidgin English, we say colloquialism or patois. There is a reason why you could take a man from Jamaica speaking complete patois, and it'll be a bigger seller in Africa. The Africans seem to be able to vibe and jive and still understand what the African man in Jamaica is saying in Jamaica, and the music itself is translatable because there's carryovers. Not only that, there is meaning that we have taken on to ourselves. What bad means in a formal standard way in English language is completely different in the mind of an African person. Because bad means something is actually good. Yeah. So so we take words and we create our own meanings to it, and it transcends across borders in how it's interpreted among our people. So even within the colonial languages, we have seen to be able to bend these things to our own will and brand our own interpretation to these kinds of meanings and experiences. So that is cultural continuity that go across the board. Continents, it extends across continents. Because a bounty killer or a burner boy could come to Jamaica and speak in his cultural dialects, pidgin, Nigerian English, and still be able to be translatable to a Jamaican audience. In the same vein, a Caribbean man could go to the deepest part of Africa and speak pidgin English or patois and be able to be understood by colonized people over there. Now, granted, we still using the colonized English, but we have taken these terms and the meanings and taken it onto ourselves where it means something completely different. So it's still translatable across the board. When I hear Brother Bakari use the word tote, I had to smile. You know what I mean? Because in Mississippi, I understand what that means in Bahamian balance. What tote mean? They say they stopped using it up north. We still use that term. We still use that term, toten. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. You know, so these things are still there's still cultural continuity that goes across the board. You know, whether we recognize it or not. Now, we have not formalized it, but it's still informally, it's still in the hearts and minds of many African people throughout the diaspora. So I don't want us to get stuck in the box of linguistics. Absolutely, linguistics is important for us to create a distinctive thing within of ourselves in terms of what we do, how we function, etc., etc., etc. But there are other elements that exist within our culture that you see cultural continuity that is still persists. You know, and I don't think that you Voltaire say you must not reject the good in pursuit of the perfect. You know, so it's not perfect as we would like it to be, but there are some things that we should focus on, which is our strengths: spirituality and religion and food. Even food, I didn't even mention food. So many of the foods that persist in the Western world, in particular the South and the Caribbean, many African people say, well, this is just a version. This is just a version of this. This is just another version of this. Oh, y'all do it like this. Oh, we do it like this over here. But it's the same kind of thing. So these kinds of things still persist, you know, and I think that we should formalize these things relating to one another. Even the blues, I forget about the blues. There's a blues musician called Corey Harris. He went to Africa. I can't remember exactly the place, Mali. He sit down with Ali Fakaturi, and he was playing American blues to Ali Fakaturi. Ali Fakaturi say, Shabba, this music from y'all get it from us. No, we get this from y'all. So the cultural continuity still persists. So I don't want us to get trapped in the box of linguistics where there are so much other elements that persist. But yes, we should formalize also the linguistics that we carry on amongst one another and get a breakaway from the colonial languages that we have inherited and formalize something different. But what we have to meet each other where we are first to determine what that should be. And whether I speak it in pidgin Bahamian to do that, or pidgin Nigerian to do that, or pidgin Mississippi to do that, this is how we dialogue with one another to get to the point to where we could dialogue in our own respective African distinctive languages. So we got to start where we are first to eventually get there, but not ignore what exists already. So I hope I hope I did at least a service to the question itself. I'll stop there.
I'll say something too, Buana. I chuckled when I heard Bakari say tote, because I've never, to my memory, I've never really heard an American say tote. And we say tote home and you know, we use it in all kinds of interesting ways. You could tote one cut ass and all kinds of things like that. So that was kind of refreshing to hear. Does anyone want to add any last words?
Hey, Koku, that's because you've been in New York, you ain't been in Mississippi. You didn't hear him say tote. Right. If you had come to Mississippi, you would have heard us Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. You would have heard us say tote. Hey man, tote that over there.
Brother Bakari, let me give you one joke. I hear a Gullah woman speak one time. And I really want to do an experiment. I want to go to South Carolina where the Gullah Geechees are. And I want to be able to, if I want to see if they'll be able to tell that I'm not from there. I really would like to see if they would be able to really say, well, this person is different from who we are. I really would like to see an experiment on a Bahamian person going to the Gullah Geechees in South Carolina and be able to see if you could tell the Bahamian from someone from South Carolina. I really would like to do that experiment.
Any other last words here on this topic? Okay. Well, if not, was someone about to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
Well, I would just add this. I would just add this that we got to remember that.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you learn another language, it doesn't take away from the language you already know. You know what I mean? So, like a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to learn this language because blah blah blah," and it'll erase my blah blah. And it's like, no, you can learn 20 languages. You know what I mean? It's learning a different language doesn't take anything from you. Now, granted, there are people who do destroy languages, but that's not what anybody like. That's very few African people are advocating for that. That's all I can say.
Appreciate it. Well, that's the show for tonight. Before you guys leave the panel, let me make sure you guys, do your routine shout out. Oni, what do you want to shout out this week?
Shit, I want to shout out sleep. No, appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody. For letting me on and all that. Thanks for thing. There was nothing went wrong today. So that's my presence. All right, let me stop. I'm tired. All right, appreciate everybody. Thanks everybody.
Now, appreciate you for coming through. I know it's like 5-6 o'clock now in the morning whole time. Bakari, you want to shout anything out this week?
Yeah, tomorrow I will be doing Mind Our Black Business episode. I think there's episode 20. Tomorrow I got a few things I'm going to talk about. Pull up a few black owned grocery stores. So y'all can, the time tomorrow gonna be, I'm gonna say gonna be 6-ish, because tomorrow at 3 p.m. ESPN, I will be watching the Jackson State University versus Florida A&M on ESPN. Tune in at 3 p.m. So that's what I'll be doing by the time I normally do my show. But I'm gonna do it a little bit. I'm gonna do it a little bit later tomorrow. And I'm going to do it in tomorrow. I will let you, because I don't know, because I'm thinking about getting away from doing that for a few months. I'm thinking about getting away from YouTube for a few months, because I got things I got to do that I have to work on. So by the time I do the show tomorrow, I'll be figured out if I'm going to still be around or not. But yeah, so I got things I got to do. And for the record, when I'm on here and I'm talking and I'm passionate, I want you to understand that passion have nothing to do with dislike or disrespect. The passion just has something to do with me being passionate about black folk. I done had to fight with white folk and them other folk my whole life. And I don't want to have to fight with black folk. And that's another reason, because I think the way I come, it make people believe that I'm trying to fight, but I'm really not. I'm just passionate about the things that I say. And some people can say emotional, and it is emotional. It's emotional because I love black folks, and love is an emotion. So yes, it is emotional at times because I love black folks. And so with my passion and my emotion, I think sometimes it might rub people the wrong way. But you know what? I'm all right with that, because shit, I've been rubbed the wrong way my whole damn life just with being who I am. And I just want people to understand that it's known coming from me, there ain't no beef, none of that, So when I say I've been fighting this fight, I've been doing it, and I'm going to continue to do it. On that note, Peace out.
Appreciate you, Bakari. I look forward to your show tomorrow, and I agree with that thing you just said too. Like, to me, we shoot the breeze. There shouldn't be no beefing and all this, no hating and all this type of stuff. We here to discuss ideas and to think. I always say it's not a talk show; it's a thought show, and we're supposed to be here thinking, man. So yeah, I appreciate that. Real Black Gentleman, what you want to shout out this week?
I want to shout out was the president of Ghana, who made some statements regarding reparations to Africa from these white people, you know what I'm saying, who done managed and facilitated, you know what I'm saying, the whole, you know what I'm saying, exploitation of Africa and its peoples. I would give a shout out to him because, you know what I'm saying, like, anytime, you know what I'm saying, you have black people in leadership who are actually speaking to our condition at the moment and the present and the future, you know what I'm saying, I'm just going to give him a shout out. I hope he keeps it up. Hope he doesn't. I hope he can, once again, you know what I'm saying, be a good, you know what I'm saying, just be a rock for, you know what I'm saying, other countries there, you know what I'm saying, who's going through, you know what I'm saying, they adjustments, you know what I'm saying, because, you know what I'm saying, black people, you know what I'm saying, sometimes, black people just gotta, you know what I'm saying, be tough and shake up the rules and the rulers. And, the people, you know what I'm saying, the soldiers are going to get it back because the soldiers did it for reasons. They didn't do it because, you know what I'm saying, they didn't know no better. You know what I'm saying? I just want to give a shout out, you know what I'm saying, Africa again, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's good things. Africa asserting itself on its own terms. I love it. I'm going to pass the mic. Thank you.
I appreciate you for coming through. Black Seal, want to shout out anything this week?
Nothing really to shout out. I enjoyed the conversation with everybody. I like everybody expressing their different viewpoints in a respectful and dignified manner. So I'm hoping we can do this again next week.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming through. Black Seal. Finally, last but not least.
I'm sorry. Black Steel, I just put a message in the chat strictly for you.
I appreciate that, Brother Bakari. I'm just like you. I'm passionate too, but I think that we both come from the same perspective that we love Black people, and I think we want to see the most good for our people. I think that's something we both agree on. That's the most important thing.
Okay, no, we agree on, but for the record, like I said, I'm gonna still say your name.
Okay.
But I say your name out of love and respect. I don't say I thought Bwana might show up last night. I called his name in the chat, and I just knew I was gonna hear something from him if he had a show.
I gotta watch that.
But when I say y'all name, I say y'all name out of respect. I ain't never saying your name trying to take a shot or anything like that, because I won't do anything like that. If I'm gonna take a shot, we're gonna be on a panel together, and I'll take a shot. For the record,
let me give my closing. Shout out to all the brothers who contributed tonight. We had a very respectful conversation, very civilized conversation. It wasn't contentious, and I respect the fact that everybody had the ability to raise their concerns, to raise their frustrations, and we still was able to talk in a respectful manner. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I appreciate my brother Bakari coming on, and I don't want him to leave, I don't want him to leave YouTube to be disheartened, because I can miss him, first of all. I love him. We all love you. You know what I mean? And I don't want him to go. I really don't want him to go. But as a man, he has to make the decision on his own to do what he feels is right and necessary. If he gotta go, he gotta go. I don't want him to go, but if he gotta go, I understand it. You know what I mean? But what else I had to say? Yeah, I appreciate the commentary from all of the brothers. Let me say this too. As far as HBCU was concerned, right? What I know about HBCU is my father taking third world money and send his 2 children to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. That's an HBCU, right? 2 of them graduated from that school and became very successful people. So I can never have nothing disparaging to say about that institution and what it would have done for his children. Can't do that because he take his third world money and invest it in a black institution. I ain't go to a black institution, but they went. And I was able to see how it functions. And I appreciate it here. We have the College of the Bahamas, which is another black institution, ain't an HBCU, but it's a black institution. Many people invest in the service of that institution to educate their children correctly. So we should never ever dismiss or say anything disparaging about our black intellectual class because they have served the black community very well and produced the best of our people. You know, besides myself, even though I didn't go there. But like I say, I just say that I am glad we was able to come to this platform as men and speak as men. And even though we may not necessarily always agree, and because we don't have to, we could still come to a position to be respectful towards one another and just leave it there and move on to something else. But Brother Bakari, I will listen to that episode. I was, like I say, I was engaged last night, but I will listen because you called my name last night. I had this huge job to say. But thank you everyone for attending and listening and contributing to the show. I'll end there.
Hey, one more thing. This is something I did ask, and this is something out of the Black Business Challenge. I'm still doing that. But I asked, and I know this probably resonate. It resonates with everybody, but it'll resonate more with Carl because the economic standpoint in which he come from, right? I said 2,000 people, but I know that's a lot, right? But I still used it and really give $20 a month, right? The $40,000 a month, $480,000 a year. I just put in the chat about garbage can sanitation business. And that is something that's what I'm going to use my time for because I'm trying to get people to understand. So I'm just going to get out there and I'm going to start this business. It's a big business because I believe in community business, the reason I asked for that, right? So this is something that I said don't cost a lot of money. Don't take 2,000 people to come together and give $20 a month. This is something if two brothers or brother and a sister, whoever, can save up $2,000, let's say $3,000 a piece. And this is a business that they can start or that, because I put in there because I want us to understand that when I go out here and do it, yeah, I'm going to make me some damn money because I'm setting everything up. But it's not just for me. This is one of the fastest growing businesses in the United States. And you don't have to buy the garbage. You don't have to buy the truck that they converted to clean trash cans. You can literally start this business with you about, I'll say anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000. And I see companies right now that have 1,000 customers and they're cleaning garbage can once a month, $20 a can, $20,000 a month, and you can invest right now. You'll invest $5,000 in this business. This is one of the top 5 growing businesses in the United States right now. You can invest $5,000 in ourselves, and there's things that we can do to help create jobs for our people. So when I said I was getting away for a little while, it's not for me to just say I'm completely leaving. There's just some things that I have to do, and I got to figure out a way to manage my time properly so I can get it done.
All right. Well, with that, we'll be back next week. Shout out to Marcus McGee, who was here. He said he had dropped a comment earlier. Shout out to Marcus McGee. He said, good show. Shout out to everyone who came in. I think I shouted out everyone as they came in tonight. Again, we'll be back next week, Saturday. And who knows, you might see me during the week one of these days. Until then, man, you guys be good. Take care. And peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.